Hey everyone, we'll start in around 5 minutes. Thanks for coming, for being patient. Yeah, in the meantime, feel free to look at the paper, and yep, we'll discuss this paper with our guest speaker here today. So he's a researcher in the division of sleep medicine at Harvard Medical School. So yeah, we'll start in a few minutes. This will be really interesting. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tomoko. Nice seeing you. I'm glad. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Um, how do I pronounce your name right? Sorry.
Shahab. No, that's fine.
Shah
Shahab.
Shahab?
Yes, that's right.
Perfect. And your last name?
Oh, that's hard. Haghayegh.
Haghayegh?
Yeah, that's close. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll try my best. I'm not very
Sure.
good with names, to be honest, but I'll try my best to
That's
not
fine.
embarrass myself. Thank you so much for coming. Hi,
Yeah.
Mayor. How meet our guest speaker?
Hello, hello. How you doing, doctor? Welcome to
Uh,
Science Society. Are you new on Clubhouse?
this is my first time.
Nice, nice. Well,
Yeah.
welcome aboard. You
Thank
know,
you.
you'll be surrounded by a bunch of brains. These rooms should be fun for you too.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
because the crowd here is pretty scientific. So,
Of
it's
course.
think of it as a crowd of your peers, right? So you can
Mm.
kind of get technical, and these are always great learning rooms. So thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
How was your day, everyone? Everyone had a good day today?
Yes, ma'am. It's good. How about you, Katerina?
Yeah, yeah, pretty okay. This week was a lot of work, but okay.
So what's new in your world?
uh, oh, a bunch of things. Like we are planning to write some grants, and I got a new puppy. If you heard.
Oh, nice. Good for you.
Uh,
Yeah, they really help.
She was like the first 2 days was like the nicest dog, and now she's being just a regular, just a puppy, like chewing on everything, and she's feeling totally comfortable to do everything
Nice.
that the puppy does, which is good. It's a healthy sign. So
Yeah, it'd be a good idea to get. I'm wondering if pet sales. I would imagine they should have increased during the pandemic, right? Like a lot of people would have got lonely and got pets. You know.
yeah, you
Sure.
couldn't even get
Yeah.
pets. There was
Right.
like long waiting lists, and you couldn't even get one. Now it's kind of back to normal, I think. I'm not sure.
Hi, Maher. During lockdown in the Netherlands, a lot of people bought a dog because they're allowed to walk the dog, and otherwise it's hard to go on the street. So yeah, hundreds of thousands extra dogs in Holland. And Shahab, a very beautiful topic you're researching. One of my best friends, Dan, who is sleeping currently because it's 3 o'clock in the Netherlands, is actually working on sweat measurements during the night. And I'd really, really like to link into what your research is showing. It's cool. He has a cooling device in the mattress that is very simple, but works very well for increasing quality of sleep. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in your talk. Thanks so much, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for your research.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, wait, Shabab, where are you from?
Originally from Iran.
From Iran. Okay. So how do we say is it Shabab
Shahab.
Shabab
Shahab Haghayegh.
Haghayegh. Okay.
Yeah.
So Dr. Haghayegh. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can slowly start and go from there. I'll introduce you
Okay.
first, and then so welcome everyone to Science Society, and of course a special welcome to our guest speaker here, Dr. Chop Hagat. I'm
Haghayegh.
so
Yeah.
sorry.
That's fine.
I'm really sorry. I'm really bad with names. And to give you, I will give you a little bit of an introduction so everyone gets to know you a little bit. So you are working at the Division of Sleep Medicine at Harvard Medical School, and you did actually a bachelor at the Sharif University of Technology, and
Yes.
then a Master of Science at Sharif University of Technology, and you did another two masters
Yeah.
in statistics and in engineering at the University of Texas at Austin. And then you did a PhD at the University of Texas at Austin in biomedical engineering.
Yes.
And then you went ahead to do research at the Harvard School of Public Health. And that's where you are in the medical school right now. So you have so many degrees. I don't know how you did that, but it's amazing. And it's wonderful to have you here and to have your really interesting research that you're sharing with us here. And we usually start by asking a couple of interview questions, if that's okay, and then we go kind of into your research.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Serena, do you want to go ahead?
Well, sure. So, in order to give the audience a, an insight and vision into how the scientific mind and how you became what you are today, we like to ask the question of, so was there something in your inner early life, perhaps your childhood or perhaps adolescence? When did you know that you really wanted to be a scientist?
Uh, well, both my parents were teachers, so and also my sister. So basically, everyone in our family is teacher, and I was interested in become teacher. Uh, and after I started like my bachelor, I also got as I think it was during my last years of bachelor that I got really excited about doing also research in addition to teaching. So that's why I keep moving forward with like to getting the PhD to find to like become a faculty to both teach and do the research. So yeah, for about the teaching part, I know that I like it from my family, and about the research part, that's something I got interested in during my bachelor.
Yeah, thank you. That's
So-
interesting.
Right, right. So if you could tell us then, what particular circumstances guided you on the way to what you will tell us about today.
Uh, so uh, actually, my path changed a lot. Well, when I went to university, I started with mechanical engineering, my bachelor, and I didn't have that. I didn't have a real idea about like what would it be. I know that I like physics and I know mathematics, but I was not real familiar with what I will do with the mechanical engineering as a job in future. So I started in mechanical engineering and specifically working on like heat transfer. And then after I finished like my, I also did my master in mechanical engineering heat transfer, but it was, I at that point I noticed that I like to do something like more close to medical stuff or biomedical stuff, not so mechanically. So that's when I applied for like University of Texas at Austin for my PhD, and the closest thing I could find was like using the heat transfer to look at like the body thermoregulation and body heat transfer. So when I started at UT Austin, I started with like body heat transfer, and then since the like body heat transfer was close to is associated with like sleep patterns and sleep and circadian rhythms, I got excited to study the relationship between these two. And while I was doing this, I took a course in statistics, and I noticed that I like it. I took another course, and I kept taking courses in statistics. And at some point, I saw that I almost got a degree in statistics, and I finished that degree. And right now, what I'm doing is like combination of both engineering and a little physiology, and also using like artificial intelligence and statistics, so combination of all of this. But basically, I moved with the flow. When I thought that I like this field, this thing, I just started to learning, and then it happened that I could combine it with my previous experience and knowledge and move forward with that.
It's so fascinating how we move forward in life, and this is a great story. So thank you for bringing us to your present research. And at this point, I want to give you the mic. The audience is able to follow the link above. And at this point, you can decide whether you want to proceed with your talk interactively or if you want to provide the body of your talk and then do a Q&A afterwards. So we'll leave that up to you, and we can handle questions from the audience in the chat or however you'd like to proceed.
I
So we're
think
here.
interactive should be fine. However you guys prefer, but interactive is fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, the mic is yours, and we hope you have present a comfortable talk.
Thank you. Okay, so basically, what I will talk is mostly about like body, how our body thermoregulation system can control sleep, and how we can benefit from that to improve our sleep. So to do that, I think I should start with like uh, the body temperature circadian rhythm, which means that our body temperature, the core body temperature, the inside temperature, is not constant during 24 hours. It is a little higher in the morning. Then in the early afternoon, when we feel a little sleepy, we have a little drop in the body temperature, and it goes up again after that until like 1 to 2 hours before our sleep time. And then at that point, it just starts a drop, and almost at the middle of our nighttime sleep, it goes to its lowest level. And after that, again, before we wake up, we have an increase in our core body temperature. And this happens every 24 hours. And it turns out that this is one of the main mechanisms that control the sleep-wake cycle. It's not the only one, but this is one of the main one. In addition to that one, for example, there's melatonin. But melatonin is one of the way that melatonin also works is by controlling the body temperature. So actually, that the path that melatonin control sleep, part of that is through the body temperature. So basically, by looking at that, we can see that we have the main thing. The important part for us was that we need a drop before we fall to sleep. We need a drop in body temperature before we fall asleep. So now let's see what are the mechanisms for like controlling the core body temperature. There are different mechanisms. The famous ones that we are all familiar with, that is like sweating when we feel hot, or like shivering when we feel cold, which makes a little heat in our body and it warm up the body. These are the mechanisms that all of us are familiar, but that's this one is not the main mechanism for the controlling the body temperature. The main one is through the blood flow. So basically, our blood flow can get the heat from the core and bring it to the surface when we need it to like lose the heat to the environment. Bring it to the surface and lose it to the environment. In order to do that, so basically there are two types of. We can say that there are two types of vessels, and this, if we want to look at the heat transfer aspect of the body. One type of vessels, which are capillaries, are for nutrition purpose. So that's where the blood goes and to do the nutrition to the cells. But there is also another type of vessels, which are the important one for the body transfer, which are called the arteriovenous anastomosis, AVAs. These are actually the direct connection between arteries and veins. So, and the specific the specific property about these vessels, which are very important, is that they can easily vasodilated and vasoconstricted, and when they are vasodilated, their diameter is like 10 times of a capillary. And the AVs are mostly, I mean, the majority of them are in the glabrous skin areas, which are the areas that we don't have hair, like the hands and feet and the ear and forehead. So these are the main parts that we have the AVs, and between all of these, the most important ones are hands and feet. And when these AVs are fully opened, like 50% of our blood flow can go just to this area. And that's actually the way that body control its temperature by redistribution of the blood flow in the body. So basically, when, for example, when the body temperature is high, the hypothalamus receives the message that the body temperature is high. So it opens up the AVs in the hands and feet. Then when the AVs are open up, more blood flow goes from the core to the surface of hands and feet. This blood flow brings the heat from the core to the hands and feet and rejects it to the environment. So the blood cool down, and the cool blood goes back to the core of our body and get the heat again and brings it to the surface and lose it to the environment. So that's how our body lose the temperature and lower its temperature. And when for example it's cold, the vasoconstriction happen in hands and feet, so the blood flow doesn't go to these areas, and the body keeps its heat in itself. So it tries to increase the body temperature, or at least not lose the temperature. So this is the mechanism that we wanted to. That's the most important to control the body temperature. So by knowing these two, now we can look at how we can control the sleep pattern by controlling the body temperature. In 2019, we did a study to just look at a very simple thing. If we take a warm bath or shower before sleep time, does it help us to fall asleep or not? That was the question for that study. And that was actually a meta-analysis, a systematic review and meta-analysis. And we found that when we take the shower, the warm shower, like 1 to 2 hours before our sleep time, it actually improves our sleep onset latency, which means the time that the duration of the time that we go to bed until we fall asleep. So when we take the warm bath like 1 to 2 hours before we go to bed, that duration that takes us to fall asleep is much shorter. And that happens by the body heat transfer. So when we take the warm bath, actually more blood flow comes to the surface of our hands and feet, and this blood flow brings the heat, and therefore, so we take the warm bath, but our body temperature after the bath goes down. So that might be a little confusing, because we expect that when we take warm bath, the body temperature should goes up, but that's the other way. when we take a warm bath, after that, the body temperature goes down because the AVAs, the vessels in the surface of our body and the surface of the skin, especially the AVAs, are opened up, and then the body loses the temperature to the environment. And therefore, when
Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. So, you just said
Um, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well, Serena. Could you maybe, do you have internet issues, or is it just on my side?
I couldn't hear.
Okay. Yeah, we can't hear you really well right now. I don't know what's going on. Maybe you want to write in the chat, and then I'll ask the question.
All right, let me make a quick interjection, guys, here on for the Science Society here, real quick, guys. Okay, everybody in the audience, right? If you could do me a favor, right, hit the share button. Seriously, guys, come on. This kind of content here is very uncommon on Clubhouse, right? So we need to, and Katerina here has been doing a great job bringing on, if you look at the history of this club, it's like, it takes time and energy to go out and talk to doctors and bring them on board and put on a event. So if you could, let's hit that share button, please, get more folks on here. And then another thing I'd request you do is if you can come on here on stage, we'd really appreciate it. Why? It also helps the club out, right? You come up on here, it shows up in your profile. So it kind of spreads the replay. So a lot, especially this content coming out of this club here. This is like replay worthy, right? Like it's good scientific knowledge. It'll spread. So if you guys like what you hear here, follow the Science Society Club, but also jump on stage, raise your hand, come on up here. I'll invite some of you up here and come on up and let's help bring more exposure to Katerina's work and Serena here. And this is a great club. I don't usually do this, but promote this heavily in a club. Actually, I don't think I know when I last did that, but I really like this club, guys. Let's spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and yeah, I appreciate it. Please continue with your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I had a question, but I've already forgotten the context, so please continue.
Okay. So basically, our findings in that study was that when we take a warm bath or shower, it helps our body to lose the temperature, and we have a drop in body temperature, and that helps us to fall asleep faster. And then the next step for us was to see if we can apply this concept, this simple concept, on a mattress system to see. Without like taking a shower, when you go to bed, you just turn on your mattress and it helps you to fall asleep. So to do that, actually, we had another line of studies on body temperature. We started that like several years ago, and that was mainly for to control the body temperature during anesthesia, but then we applied this for the sleep time. And the idea behind that is very simple. So we want to control the body temperature. Now let's imagine that you are in a room and you set the temperature in the coolest possible temperature, but you still feel it's hot in the room. So what can you do? One solution can be you bring a hair dryer and blow hot air to just the thermostat, not the whole room. You just warm up the thermostat, so the thermostat thinks that the whole room temperature is high, and therefore it turns on the AC and the whole room temperature goes down. So you selectively warm up just a small area of the room, which is important for the thermal property, and then you can lower the room temperature. We wanted to do the same thing. So basically, we wanted to lower the body temperature by selectively warm up just a small part of the body. And then what's that part? So we have different, we have a thermal sensor all over our bodies. So that's how we feel hot and cold with our skin. But some of these sensors are more important for our body than the others because they are closer to our core. And by core, I mean like the brain and the heart. So for example, if a thermal sensor in your neck area detect a hot temperature, but another sensor in like your foot area detect a cold temperature, the body gives more attention to the one that is closer to the core, which is the neck one, not to the foot one. So that's actually the main part of the main sensors of our body. So the main message goes, these are the most important one. The body prioritizes these sensors. So we use this method by just warming up the neck area to open up to trick the body. So the body thinks that the body temperature is high, and it opens up the AVAs in the hands and feet, and more blood flow go to that area and drop the body temperature. We use that for like during the day and the purpose was to open up the AVAs to control the body temperature for during the anesthesia. But we could use also the same method for sleep. So that's how we made the mattress. So we just warm up the neck area with like for a short duration, like 30 minutes or 15 minutes at the beginning that you go to bed. That tricks the body that the whole body temperature is high, open up the AVAs, and blood flow goes to hands and feet, and the body temperature drops. But in addition to that, we also use a dual temperature mattress, which had a little warmer peripheral area and a little cooler central area. The reason for that is for like the warmer peripheral area is that, and by warmer I mean the temperature in that area is still a little lower than our core body temperature, but when you touch it, you can feel a little higher than the room temperature. But we didn't want to go above the body temperature because heat transfer is always from the higher temperature to the lower temperature. So we need to the environment temperature be lower than our core body temperature, so the heat transfer would be from our body to the environment, and the heat goes from our body to the environment, and the body temperature drops. And the reason that we didn't cool down that area that much is because when you cool down some area, local vasoconstriction can happen in those areas. This is one reason. So if we cool down like hands and feet, although we are warming up the neck, when you cool down that area, it might cause a little vasoconstriction because that cooling in that area cause closing the vessels. And the other reason is that there are also studies that shows that not only the body temperature controls sleep, but also the difference between the temperature of our hands and feet and the central area of our body is the one that helps falling asleep. So when we have like a higher difference between the temperature of hands and feet and the central of our body, that also is called distal proximal temperature. The higher distal proximal temperature is also associated with shorter sleep onset duration. So basically, when we warm up that area a little, it helps in two ways. It increases the distal proximal temperature, and it also helps to open up the AVAs and body lose its heat to the environment and lower the body temperature, and that improve the sleep onset. And then we cool down the central area a little, and again, not too much to cause vasoconstriction, just a little bit. And the reason for that is that we don't have that many AVAs. We actually don't have AVAs in like the central area on our back. So the main heat transfer mechanism in that area would be conductive heat transfer, which means that between surface and surface. So whenever we have a higher temperature difference between the two surfaces, we would have more heat transfer, higher amount of heat transfer between these two surfaces. So when we cool down that area a little bit, that helps to direct heat transfer from our core to the mattress system. And as I said again, it also increases the distal proximal different temperature. So because that distal proximal is the difference between temperature of hands and feet and the central area. So when we warm up a little the peripheral area and we cool down the central area, so that also helps us to fall asleep. And we tested this on like some subjects, and for testing that, we asked subjects to come to our lab like for one afternoon to become familiar with like the sleep environment. They slept like for a few hours there, but we didn't record any data. Just we turned on the bed, we turned off all the lights and connected all the sensors to them to become to make them familiar with the lab environment. And then we did 2 nights of a study, so 1 night control and 1 night treatment, and it was randomly assigned for some subjects. The first night was like the control night. For some subjects, the second night was the control night. And we measured all these parameters. So we measured like the sleep quality, we measured the distal-proximal temperature, which is like the connected temperature sensors to hands and feet, and the central area of body to measure that distal proximal temperature. We measured their core body temperature, which happens with like some kind of capsules that they take it, and it transfers the body temperature to a receiver. We measured their blood flow in hands and feet, and all of these. By measuring all of these, we got significant results in almost all the parameters. So we had in the treatment nights, we had increase in their blood flow compared to their normal control time, normal control sleep, and then we have more drop in their core body temperature and shorter sleep onset time, which means that they fell asleep faster. And then in the morning, we also gave them questionnaires about their sleep quality. How was your sleep? If you want to compare these 2 nights, control night and the treatment night, and do you think this system can help you? And we also got significantly better subjective sleep quality, which was measured by those questionnaires in the morning. So this is one aspect of the system. The other aspect is that, which is also very important, and we are actually more interested about that part, which is not in this paper yet, but this would be our next publication, is about the blood pressure. So recently there are several studies, large cohort studies, that shows that the amount of dipping in the blood pressure in the nighttime is significantly associated with the future risk of cardiovascular disease. So basically, if, for example, normally we go to doctor's office, they measure our blood pressure during the daytime, and they have some cutoff, and if our blood pressure is below that cutoff, they say we are fine, and if it is above that cutoff, they say we are hypertensive. But recent study shows that that's not really predictive of future risk of cardiovascular disease. The one that is predictive of future cardiovascular disease is the nighttime sleep and sleep time blood pressure, and more importantly, the drop during the nighttime. So which means the difference between the nighttime sleep time blood pressure, the difference between that and the daytime blood pressure. So which means that if we can somehow drop the body temperature during the nighttime sleep time, which can have positive health outcomes for us, which lower the risk of future cardiovascular disease. And that's actually what happened with this master system. And the reason is that when the AVAs are open up, the majority of the blood flow goes to these AVAs, to these vessels. And these vessels are widely open. Their diameter is like 10 times open, 10 times bigger than the diameter of a capillary. So when the diameter goes up, that's a formula in fluid mechanics. The resistance through the blood flow goes down. So when the diameter is like 10 times higher, the resistance through the blood flow is 10,000 times lower. And when there's less resistance through the blood flow, which means that lower blood pressure. So basically, what happens is we open up the AVAs, there would be less resistance through the blood flow, and the blood pressure drops. So that's also additional benefit of this mattress system, which helps us to have a lower blood pressure during the sleep time, which is associated to lower risk of future cardiovascular disease. I think I covered mostly the paper, so if you guys have questions, we can go through it.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting this really interesting work that you did. So, if people have questions, please flash your microphone, and we'll answer questions from there. And yeah, I would like to know. So, what's next? Like, how long will it take until we can get this for for ourselves to sleep better?
So that's actually what we are trying to do. Before we publish this paper, and I mean we have uh, these results out, we talked to some of the big companies, the mattress companies, but they are not interested in changing what they have right now because they can sell what they have right now. They can easily sell their mattress, so they are not interested in like making these kind of changes in their system. But recently several companies contacted us and they are interested to do some kind of commercialize this. And so the IP for this system is like for the university right now, and they are negotiating with university to see if they can buy the license the IP, and if they want to do making the bed is not very difficult because it's not a rocket science. It's not that complicated to make it. I guess if they get to some kind of agreement, they should be able to give it sell it in maybe less than a year or so.
Yeah, that's interesting and promising. It's really a very, it's a very significant effect. Did you compare maybe to other technologies out there, like these different sound frequencies and so on? Like, what is this better and more effective than, having these sound clouds on, this white noise and things like that? Um, do you think that this is more significant or more helpful?
Uh, we didn't directly compare with like other technologies, but one of the main things that everybody believes that improves the sleep is melatonin. And when we look at the effect size of this compared to melatonin, the effect size of this improvement is higher than melatonin. And the point is that this is without taking any medication or it won't have any side effect or anything like that. So that's very important to we were able to make more user effect on sleep onset latency compared to a medication.
That's really a strong effect. It's really impressive, and I think it would be actually very helpful for children with autism and other disorders that have melatonin deficiencies, and you know, due to that, they have kind of lack of sleep a lot. So, do you maybe consider working with maybe child psychiatry or so to test that if in autistic children this could also have a really great effect without them taking another drug?
Yeah, definitely. So research-wise, our next step would be to, at this point, we just tested on healthy people. So research-wise, our next step would be to test it on different populations, either as you said, psychiatric problems, or also there are some kind of sleep problems that this can definitely help them because, for example, one of the major type of insomnia is from the circadian misalignment. So that's something that this one can easily control that and help that. So we need to also test that. So on people who have insomnia, on people who wake up during the night and they feel hot, if that also help them. They have 7 different types of insomnia and all of these. we can test on each one of these to see how is the effect on that. But we believe that it would have very significant effect on at least some special types, like the circadian disorder one. That would definitely help. And in addition to that, this can also help, for example, people who have problem with jet lag. So it can help you to align your circadian body with the clock, circadian clock with the real clock, and like have less time of jet lag. Or like shift workers, or this kind of people who have special needs to change their sleep pattern or sleep on certain different times than the normal people sleep. So these are all, I mean, all of us need sleep, so everyone can benefit from it in different ways. But yeah, we need to test it on different populations. This is what we want to do for research-wise as the next step.
You know who could be like somebody that could buy it from you? The Navy. You know, on these ships, especially that have the airplanes. What's the name for it? Anyways, they have, I think, 5 hours they can sleep, and then they have to work like 9 hours or 10,
Exactly.
and then sleep again 5 hours. So for the military, this would be maybe something that could, because if their sleep is better, then also they have less likelihood of developing PTSD and depression later on.
Exactly. Yeah.
So to talk to them,
Yeah.
to DARPA or something.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's really everywhere. So one of the places that we were talking a while ago was like NASA. So they were also interested in like some kind of, because they also have a circadian center. So they do lots of research on like sleep and the circadian rhythm of people when they go to space. So they were also some kind of interested in the technology. So I mean, it's really everywhere. I mean, we all need a sleep, and we all need it.
How about? I mean, do you have do you have like a YouTube video of it? Like, maybe if you like make it like a video of people sleeping on it and what they say about it, that'll really spread. Like, because talking about it and is one thing, right? But like just having normal people like, okay, slept on it. What do you think? And then kind of just describing their experience. Um, that that would probably spread quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's also something that can help. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, if you
Well,
help with the
let's take it a little bit, farther down the road. So, if you were gonna specify requirements for early deployments, whether you targeted the military or you targeted the civilian population or whatever market you were gonna target, if you want to specify requirements, okay, for this particular market, we're going to specify these conditions and in these circumstances. What would that look like? What is your best first pass at this, harvesting this research into something that we can really apply?
Uh, so it really depends on what we want to do it. So, for example, if someone has like a circadian problem, that would be a different story compared to people who are normal sleeper. For the circadian, you cannot change it like in one night. You should slowly bring it back to the normal. So, for example, they should start if it's like 5 hours delayed, they should start with like 4.5 hours, turn on the bed, go to bed, and then after like 1 week, make it 4 hours and bring it back by helping this bed to their normal sleep time. But like if somebody is normal sleeper, they don't need that to do something like that. That's one consideration. I mean, it depends on the specific needs of that category. Whether they are not, they need to sleep like normal or do they need to sleep? They are shift workers and they need to sleep on certain hours, or do we need to fix their circadian misalignment? That's one point. And the other point is that since it has effect on blood pressure, one thing we should also be careful is people who have low blood pressure. So that's also one consideration, that if for some people who have low blood pressure, that should be also studied, that does it lower it more, or maybe we should recommend people with low blood pressure, maybe we should recommend them to not use this system or something like that. That's also one consideration that we need to study.
Are you done, Serena?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So thank you
please.
so much, Shab. That was a very fascinating work. And my question exactly, that's a good time to asking that, for example, some of the people that is struggling from the REM sleep disorder, or they have some problems like limb disorder. So we know that they already experiencing the, I mean, low temperature during that time. Also, some other thing that I can think about is about withdrawal from the alcohol or some of the sedative that they are causing the low temperature. I was just wondering, that was a good point that you just mentioned. And do you have any further information, or it's just up to the study in the future?
No, we didn't test on this kind of population. So yeah, these are all the things that we should do in the next steps to see what kind of consideration and what kind of limitation should we consider for this system.
Also, maybe the portion of the, I mean, for example, for the REM sleep, we have it just take a 20 to 25% of the sleep. It can be proportional of the, I mean, sleep parts, for example, or not.
Yeah, so basically, we didn't report in this study the like the micro sleep structure, how much was in each sleep stage, but basically they would have a higher deep sleep, I mean longer duration of deep sleep and longer duration of REM sleep when by using this system. And also there were previous studies that they did, like they lowered the body temperature. They also found the same thing. So by lowering the body temperature, they were able to increase the duration of the deep sleep and REM sleep, which is a good thing.
Yeah, thank you for those questions, Dr. Shah. And it, please flash your microphone if you have questions. Rahama, you joined the stage. Joyce, John, Yinka, Kyoku, Susie, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, but I am incredibly grateful for the wealth of information being shared, and I would love to share later on if I do have anything to actively participate with. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask some. You got a nice room, and thank you so much for all the detail. Right. Um, Maybe we could ask you some, like, I guess, basic questions. First and foremost, based on your research, what can you tell us, maybe, doctor, that we can do at home to improve our sleep based on what you learned, whether it's temperature adjustments or, what are maybe the top 1, 2, 3 piece of advice you'd give us?
Yeah. So basically, if I want to, my recommendation temperature wise is that the simplest thing that we can do is like taking a warm bath or shower before sleep time. And the important thing is that it shouldn't be so close to sleep, because actually, if, for example, exactly before we go to bed, we take a warm shower, that make our sleep worse. And this, I mean, there are various studies that shows that. So the golden time was like 1 to 2 hours before sleep time, because when you are under the shower, your core body temperature goes up, and this is opposite of what we want. So And if you take shower and you jump to the bed, your core body temperature would be high, and that wouldn't help. So the very simplest thing that we can do is to like take the warm bath or shower like 1 to 2 hours before sleep. And then one other thing is that if we can program our thermostat, program it in a way that our core body temperature is so lower it at the beginning of the night. So for example, if you go to bed like at midnight, set it on lower temperature for the midnight until like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then after that increase it a little bit so it's warm. We won't feel cold in the morning when we wake up, and then at night when we go to bed, it helps us to fall asleep. The other thing is that it's important to have warm hands and feet. So if your feet are cold, it might help to wear like a socks that can warm up your feet a little bit. So that can also improve your sleep. These are the simple things, and I mean, with no cost. But if you want to spend a little money, there are also options. So for example, I myself use like the thermal pads. I put one of them in my pillow to apply this thermal stimulation to my neck. So that's just a simple thermal pad. I connect it to like a timer and set it that to turn off after like 30 minutes. And if you want to spend more money, there are like currently there are mattresses that they can control the temperature, but I mean they are not dual zone and they don't have all these things. But you can also benefit from that. So for example, if you can warm up your mattress a little when you go to bed while the room temperature is cool, that can help you fall asleep faster. So yeah, it depends on like what we want, how much we want to spend on this. But the easiest thing, I believe, that like take a warm bath or shower 1 to 2 hours before sleep, that really can help.
Yeah, I'd probably just build something. Like a lot of, trust me, a lot of people in this room would probably in this club would literally build stuff, right? You know, so like, can you take like what? Okay, so tell me, if we were to, what's the specs? All I need to know is like, okay, so on the bed, like here's what I want to make my bed do, right? Like, do I want to make the top warm or the bottom cold, or like kind of give me an idea of
Yeah. Okay,
like
so let's start with the pillow. You can put a thermal pad in your pillow in a way that it's warm up your neck, not not the whole pillow, because as I mentioned, we have AVs in our ear and in the forehead. If you warm up that area, you actually would increase the core body temperature. So not that area, just like close to the neck area. If you can make your pillow in a way that can warm up that area, and the temperature we use, usually temperature like 39 degrees Celsius should be good, but I mean, you should adjust it, not burn in a way that doesn't burn you. So
wait, so
definitely
you want,
test.
so neck area you want 39 Celsius and for how long?
So we tested in our study, we tested for 30 minutes, but we saw that after 15 minutes, the blood flow increased. So 15 to 30 minutes should be enough.
All right, so basically set it to and you want that at the start of the sleep, right? Like right when you hit the pillow.
Yes, exactly. But
All
again, the
right, so
temperature, you should test it when you are awake to make sure it doesn't burn your neck. So, because it's
yeah,
different for people.
yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, because
so
it's something different, right? So you want warm neck. All right. What about the rest of the body?
okay, so this is the highest temperature we use, and then we need warm hands and feet and cooler central. So basically, we need to avoid that warm up a little bit the peripheral area where our hands and feet goes, and the temperature we had was like 33 to 34 degrees Celsius. That's basically for our hands and feet, and then cool down the central area a little bit, like 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. That would be the dual temperature part of the mattress. I mean, controlling the mattress would be a little hard because You need to really make it. It's not that easy, but making the pillow is kind of easy. You just need a thermal pads. But for the mattress, you need like a water to put like maybe tubes in it to control it, or maybe if you want to control it with air, it's a little difficult.
Okay, here's what I'm thinking you could do it with. Okay, I think you may be able to do it with a glass bead system potentially, right? So if you have like, have you seen those? I love these like blankets, right? Where they're like filled with these little small glass beads, and then you lay down, and then it like forms this like barrier all around your body, right? Have you ever tried those? Or anybody know what I'm talking about?
I haven't.
Okay, so if you look up like glass bead blanket, right, or heavy blanket, right, they're like really nice and heavy, right? So if you put basically, okay, let me rephrase. What if you use the blanket style to instead of the mattress, right? Because you could probably get more control on a blanket than you can on the mattress, and you're like tossing and turning, moving at night. I know I move around a lot, right?
Mm.
Um, I literally have energy all day, and even in the bed, I'm like bouncing around in my bed. Um, so like I could see where if you have a blanket style thing, right, where it's in the blanket, so and then a lot. You have a blanket, and basically this glass bead structure thing that I'm talking about creates this nice like um, barrier all around you. I don't know how to describe it other than you can move around and you always have this nice like you feel cozy. Okay, right?
Mhm,
Maybe
mhm,
somebody else can explain knows what I'm talking about, right? So just imagine you're laying down and you have a bunch of like a blanket, and then on your sides going down are the blanket. It's inside of it is filled with these glass bead things that are
mhm,
next to you, right? Well, then you could charge them up, or you could charge up different areas and to be different temperatures. So maybe you could, in essence, you're charging up you're applying temperature control to the side of the legs, right? More than likely, most people might sleep on the. You know what I mean? Like, can you do it
mhm,
through something like that? Maybe make it because then that's cheaper, right? Like, and then everybody already has a blanket. I mean, already people have beds, right? And then if you took the blanket approach, okay, where you just put this thing blanket on top of you, and then you have this little, like you said, a little thermal pad in the pillow, and you just sell the pillow thing. Then I think that might be like more feasible to.
mhm,
And then you could even like create a little prototype and just load up the blanket with some prototype and then put it out there and start selling it and then if people buy it that's that's
yeah.
that's the easiest way to get big companies to pay attention to stuff as an entrepreneur myself is yeah we have here it's as simple as we sold a few of these units and then their friends bought and then they bought some for their family and and it's starting to grow and good stories and they'd be like yeah all right cool this is also paired up with research so that would
Mhm,
be
mhm,
a potential approach because it's difficult to make mattresses right like mattresses are big and bulky but it's not that hard if you approach it from some type of a insert or even maybe like if you initially start off with think of it like a sleeping bag right I mean even especially sleeping bags right you could probably target the sleeping bag market to start with and
mhm,
you know have some more an easier way to the market without having to create some big bulky mattress you know what I mean but you can
mhm,
still hit the
mhm.
same results with because in essence what you're doing is uh, the product is temperature control at certain body points isn't that a good way to summarize it
Yes, that's correct. Just one
you know
consideration in this idea is that we should be careful to not isolate the body. So we should remember that we want to lower the body temperature, and we need to have some kind of heat transfer between the body and environment. So if, for example, we isolate our feet to warm it up, there's no way that it can reject the heat to the environment. So actually, the purpose is to warm up the feet a little bit, to open up the areas and do the heat transfer to the environment. So we shouldn't isolate that. We should we should like stimulate it with the with the temperature, but we shouldn't isolate it. That's the
gotcha and then so what would you recommend the Oh yeah, what was the body? You said 27. So 27 degrees Celsius is what you want the, So your hands and feet are 32. Your neck area is like 39, and then the rest of the body you want to be at 27. Is that the target?
Yes.
And then what about the ambient temperature, the temperature outside? What should the temperature be in the room?
So the room temperature is usually, I mean, the recommendation is to set it like on 68 Fahrenheit, 67, 68 Fahrenheit, which is good one. I mean, that's based on the studies.
Yeah, 68 Fahrenheit. Dude, yeah, I actually like it, right? But like I could tell you, man, like my friends or others that are elders, especially like foreigners, dude, they don't like they want to save money, right? So they'll sit there and like a lot of families are like I know with my dad's house, dude, it's like freaking like 99 degrees up in there, dude. I'm like I'm being a little
Yeah,
facetious, but it is.
exactly.
He sets it at like 83, 84, and then like the other thing foreigners do, I know specifically Middle Easterns, right, is for whatever reason, since they're kids, that there's this sense of like bundle them up with like multiple layers and go to sleep with multiple layers, right? So they get used to that stuff. It's like
Yeah.
anytime I'm at my dad's house, it's like here's more stuff, and I'm like, dude, I don't say dude, but like, I'm like I just say okay, okay, and then I just sleep however I want to, right? But, but
Yeah.
I learned that I'm just not going to argue about this. Like I'll be like, science says 69 degrees, 68 degrees is what it should be at, right? And then of course it's like,
Yeah.
no, they don't know what they're talking about, right?
Exactly.
What are you talking about? You want me to freeze to death? What science
I,
says I should freeze to death?
I have to say, Florida woman here. I don't let it get below 75.
Oh, see, so you don't like you don't want no 69 business in your
No, that is
going out of
in here.
huh?
So it's very funny. In Germany, where I grew up, people would put the bedrooms freezing. Like they would never in the winter heat up the bedrooms. They would say it's bad for your sleep. But in Portugal, my great grandmother, she used to put so much clothes on me all the time. Like it was horrible, so extreme. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. But I like Mayer's thinking because I agree. People that would probably need it, they wouldn't want to spend the money on it. So let's say my grandmother in Portugal, she would never spend. But if it was like a solution like this, maybe a pad with different would it work maybe with water going through, and then you have the different regions,
Hmm. Hmm.
like the floor that when you heat up the tiles and stuff in a house, like could you make like different regions with different heated water? But that would that be expensive? Maybe.
Yeah, that's so actually we tested two types of mattress. One was water based, so we had tubes in the mattress, and then we had two different temperature, two different controlling system, one warming up and the other one cooling down the water. And then the other type was air based, so we below the air from the cold air from the central. So basically we had bunch of holes in the central area, and we brought a duct of cold air under it, and then we below the hot air to the peripheral area. So the water is the water is much easier, definitely, than the air, and it's much easier to control the temperature for the water. But it's not that cheap. I mean, making with water is not that cheap.
Do you know the electric um not ovens, I'm sorry, to heat up water and stuff, the induction ones that I never saw it here in the US, but in Europe we have
Mm.
more electric than gas sometimes, and then you have these induction ones. So if it's actually some some sort of metal, it heats it up very efficiently and very fast. But if you as a person touch it, it won't heat up your hand, so there's no risk like kids getting burned.
Uh-huh.
you know, if they pull down the boiling water, then yes. But just touching, and then it immediately cools down, almost immediately. But the problem is it's a hard surface. But that would be probably the best way to control really fast and very distinct regions with this induction system. I don't know if you know of it.
Okay, so
Where?
So based on this discussion, Doctor, this is welcome to Clubhouse. By the way, this is your official enter Clubhouse mode, right? Like now we're gonna go into like social mode, and like you get a bunch of brains. We like to solve problems and have fun too, right? So basically, basically, what I'm saying here is like, okay, dude, like the bed is probably not the best approach, right? Like at the end of the day, you want to control temperature at certain body parts, and it's much easier to do that with some type of clothing, right? Or some type of covering style system. I think
Yeah.
if to reach that effect. Plus, if you do it that way, like through a clothing style system, right? The applications will be beyond just sleep, right? Like there's probably a whole lot of stuff you can tackle with that. So like Katerina, remember like you had the nano dudes here earlier, the guys that did the skin. Remember, I think it was your room, right? The ones that did the skin thing from the
Yeah,
UT Austin or something, right? Right?
yeah,
Yeah, so you get those guys to hook up with Doctor here, okay, and then they could go start designing some like suit thing, right, or like some,
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hang on. So we could do the bed as a base, thermal mass, and it can always talk to the blanket, right? If we're gonna
yeah,
put
yeah.
together,
There you go. That's cool.
yeah,
That's really cool.
if we're gonna put together solutions here, all right, yeah, I'll take it and run. Let's let's put together solutions. So we got the thermal mass and we got the blanket, and there's Bluetooth or something. But how do we do the sandwich layer regulation of the organism?
Okay, this is where people in the audience need to come jump up on stage, like like Ben and Io and Shane. Come on, guys, let's have fun with this. Let's like invent up here the new because we all like our sleep, man. And if we could kind of like figure out how to hack this up, like in some way where you could just kind of get some simple parts around us, right? Uh, I would do this. I want to sleep better, man. I really want to sleep better. Like it's very
Everybody
important.
better. I don't this off.
All right, so keep going, Serena.
This is Salim. Just before we kind of go on to into R&D mode, hardcore, I was wondering, were there any sort of unexpected or additional benefits that you observed from using the system aside from sleep?
So the one that I mentioned was the blood pressure, which was which we had the drop in the blood pressure, and also the heart rate, so lower heart rate and lower blood pressure. And the blood pressure one is really interesting because, as I mentioned, that's significantly associated with risk of cardiovascular disease.
Oh yeah, and those guys, by the way, they also had this blood pressure thing that was like they could take blood pressure. Like this is so cool, Katerina. You could just mix a few of your people together, and they can invent products. You know that, right?
yeah. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. That's actually, to be honest, like that's in the background where you hope for doing something like that at some point, that we actually come up with solutions for people, science society. That's like the dream. And yeah.
So yeah, I see that someone mentioned like 8 asleep in the chat. That's actually the mattress I myself use it, but the problem with that one is that that's a single temperature, so you cannot have different temperature in the peripheral and central. And the main thing is that it's really expensive. So that's a major problem with that one.
Yes, so I looked up the induction heat works in the way that it uses electromagnetic radiation to create heat inside the cookware. So you have to have a cookware that is made out of metal, like magnetic pots and pans. And so it means that the cooktop stays cool, relatively cool, but then the hot pan cooks your food. And it's really fast to, like, it's really almost instant heat that you can create and then cool down. Depends more. So if you would induce this electromagnetic radiation and have tiny wires, metal wires, that you could then program pretty well. But you know, you don't need to cook it. Like, you don't want to cook the person. Not as hot,
Well,
but
well,
it's
yeah.
super
If
fast.
you ever need, steady heat, if there's, a metal and you apply an oscillating electromagnetic field and just send electrons going back and forth really fast, you're going to heat that metal up real quick. So you can generate all the heat if you're going to apply the power. No problem. So if you want to, regulate heat, you can embed that. No pun intended. Well, pun intended. Okay. You can embed that, metallic element and apply an oscillating current and heat that up whenever you need to, like an induction coil or an induction heater. Um, just saying.
Yeah, and couldn't we add then, those kind of slimy materials that kind of heat up and cool down, in the winter you can like instantly I think a metal is in there and you kind of bend it and then it heats up your gloves and stuff like that. So, and then the problem is you need to microwave it to get it back to. But you want fast cooling down again or like slow? Because it would be, you could heat it up also that way pretty fast, but then it cools down slowly and you probably want more control. So, yeah, what would be the stuff you would put around the metal? Because, right on the metal, that would be dangerous. I think. So it has to be something that kind of transmit the exact
Mm,
right amount. But yeah, it would be really cool too. To try the electromagnetic version because metal is cheap, right? I mean, it should be cheap to make like.
yeah.
So it's basically like a blanket with a bunch of metals inside of it that activates at different points to either heat up or cool down.
Yeah, like the cool down we would have to do differently, right? The cool down.
Yeah, there's not really a symmetry with temperature. Cooling, I mean, in efficient ways, let vapor go. But yeah, cooling is different than heating, no doubt.
Could we do different like salts that you have in regions that you wanted cooler? There's like high density of specific salts that can cool down water or
Not
something really
if
efficient.
cooling, you got to do heat exchange. And so, you've basically got to fabricate some kind of heat exchanger, you know, active air conditioning going on. And, that can be tricky, but Shahib, if, we can ask you, if you were to just, if a whole bunch of funding showed up and a whole bunch of engineers flew in and they ask you, as engineers do, what are the requirements? What would you say? What are the requirements for the optimal system as you best understand?
So basically, we need to have control on the temperature, uh, and we need to be able to keep it constant during the night, at least for like maybe at least 3 to 4 hours for the starting for the first few hours of sleep. So these two are the main requirement. I mean, in addition to like the safety stuff and all of those, but from the if we want this concept to work, we need to have this temperature during the night.
So far, Serena, to help you out maybe a little bit, what I gathered was like, okay, the hands, you want the hands at 32 degrees
30.
Celsius. You want the neck at 39 degrees Celsius, right? You want the body at 27 degrees Celsius. So hands and feet, 32, right?
Yes.
Neck area 39, and the rest of the body 27. Like that's a suit, you know, or like a blanket kind of stuff. You could probably pull that off with some type of blanket thing that you plug in, and as long as you had some way of cooling down a certain area, you know, um, if you're sensing, because I'm thinking it's got to be practical, right? Like what's the most efficient way to achieve that result? That's the requirement at the end of the day. It's like basically controls. The other requirement is adding controls of time. So another thing I picked up in here, which was interesting, was I'm gonna try this strategy. I'm gonna try this strategy at my dad's house. Right? I can't wait to do this in my dad's house. Okay, I'm gonna go to my dad's house. I'm gonna wait till he sleeps, and I'm gonna go change that thing to like 68, right? 69, and I'm gonna go like before he wakes up, I'll change it back up to where it's like really hot, or whatever, like you know, or like where the temperature starts to go up, and see if he even senses it, right? Because it seems like there's a sensitivity. Another thing that's unique about you know or for the system to work, it seems is there's a variable temperature depending on where you're at in the sleep cycle. So it's more of a you get started and then you want to do like a cool down process um, during the night, and then you want to like do a warm up process so that they wake up warmer. So you want this cooling effect to take place uh, at nighttime, right?
Yes.
Is that correct, doctor? Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I was able to
Um, can I
comprehend
just
some of this
add
stuff.
an explanation to a comment I made in the comment section?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So I'm actually a really bad example of sleep because I'm in Denmark. It's 12 minutes past 4 in the morning. So great conversation. I'll be listening in for a while, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dan from Holland, who has made the Q strip. And what he doesn't talk about a lot is he's actually made a cooling system that will react when you start sweating during the night. So everything you're thinking of that you wish, I think he just might have it. So if anyone wants to contact him, I set his homepage in the comment section.
Oh,
Absolutely amazing what he does compared to what you talk about you want. Susie from Denmark, over and out.
all right. Thank you. Yeah, I visit their website and contact them. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to point out that Dr. Shab, he already published a paper on this. You know, it's like we are just like, thinking about cheap options that our grandmothers and grandfathers that come from Portugal or Middle East would
Yes, and that's actually exactly what Dan has made. He's thinking the same way as you are thinking, I think.
Okay. So I have a theory. Tell me if I'm correct here or not. Okay. People that come from places that are very cold typically like it cold at night to sleep, and then people that are coming from places that are really, really, really hot typically like it warmer, predominantly probably due to the cost of air conditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or heating, air conditioning or heating, right? So it's like there's a direct correlation, I think, between access to power or not, or cost of power.
So could it be that it is different in different populations around the world, like how at what temperatures melatonin is being produced the best? Like in
That
yeah.
yeah, that's true because, for example, the Asian has lower body temperature. The body temperature is different for people. I mean, it's not based on electricity. It's different. It's not constant. I mean, we don't have like a standard body temperature for every population. That's true. Yeah.
Ah, that's
The
interesting.
core, I'm sorry, yeah. The core body temperature decreases as the onset of the sleep and continuously drop during the sleep span, and then it rise at a beginning of the weekly, and then rise. So I'm just wondering, mm, which is the cause and the effect? Is that because on the onset of sleep we have a much more reduced activity, and then cause the core body temperature decrease, or is that because we have decreased temperature sensor, the temperature setting cause us to sleep?
Well, this is both ways. So there's a model, the famous model for sleep, Bowerly model. So basically, we have a circadian component and we have a sleep pressure. So when we are on the correct circadian timing and we have enough sleep pressure, basically we fall asleep. So this is actually both ways. We need the signal from these circadian rhythms so the body figure out that it's time to fall asleep. But on the other way, also when we fall asleep, we have less activity and it would lower the body temperature. But we cannot say that's the only thing, because so after, for example, after the middle of the sleep time, the body temperature started to increase, but we still don't have any activity. So again, the circadian rhythms, which one the most important one is the body temperature one. This sends the signal to the body that it's time to sleep. But on the other hand, when we sleep, it also affects the circadian rhythms, the body temperature and other things.
So if we have ideal temperature regulating bed, so if we have at the time we want to sleep, then we just set the for example, the bed would sense our intention to sleep, or we just tell the bed, hey, I'm going to sleep. So the bed would lower the temperature, and then to help us lower the core body temperature. And then, so would that be possible that we force to sleep, at a short time? And also, if we see during sleep time, we just the bed would sense our sleeping, and then so the bed will intentionally, for example, lower the temperature, and then so that we could keep the we could keep the sleeping time longer than usual, even if we see a temperature is trying to rise, but the bed is trying to decrease the temperature so that we could sleep longer.
So, the model for sleep is like it has two components. One is the circadian rhythm, which is what you say, which goes, for example, from the body temperature. The body tell the temperature tell the body it's time to sleep, it's time to wake. But the other component is the sleep pressure. That's the amount of. That's why, for example, after 12 hours we feel sleepy. After a duration that we don't sleep, the sleep pressure increases. So we need both these components to fall asleep and wake up. So if we cannot just control, we cannot just control the sleep wake with changing the temperature or controlling the circadian rhythm, because that's not the only component. We also need to control the sleep pressure. And the sleep pressure is by timing and by activities. So, for example, if you sleep after 7 hours, the sleep pressure is at the lowest level. So that component would be out, and even if you lower the temperature again, you won't fall. You can't sleep much longer.
Okay, so speaking of pressure, by the way, like what? Just for we don't have the sophisticated beds, right? But like, what would be what kind of beds should we be getting? Like, what would you recommend? There's the foam, there's the spring, there's soft, there's medium, whatever, hard. What would like based on your research, what's the best surface pressure to be sleeping on?
So that really depends on, I mean, for each person it's different. That really depends on how you prefer and the position that you sleep. So if you sleep on the sides, usually it's recommended to have softer sleep. If you sleep on back, a little harder mattress. And then on the other side, it's always recommended to sleep on the side, because when you sleep on the back, kind of the airway, your neck goes back and the airway would be blocked. So that's not ideal. So ideally, you should sleep on the sides, and if you sleep on the sides, the softer mattress is better.
Got it. Thanks.
So I'm curious. I've had several addresses at several latitudes, and sometimes I've been in very cold environments, and lately I've been in warm environments, and um, there's all kinds of natural behaviors about temperature regulation which are interesting in this context. In the northern latitudes, there's heavy blankets and hot water bottles sometimes, and in the southern latitudes, you throw the blankets off and clothes are optional and all of that stuff. Um, it's curious from an engineering point what the optimal, you know, mattress, smart blanket dialogue would be. Um, I would imagine there'd be a necessary, ambient temperature component to any kind of smart algorithm that would, apply. Any comments?
Uh, so, I mean, basically, you need to be able to have heat transfer to the environment. So, if it depends on, I mean, how you define your system. If you just have a mattress which you warm up and cool down the mattress, your body, one side of your body is still in contact with the environment, so you still need to control the environment temperature. But if you are talking about like a suit that cover all over your body, at that, if that's the concept, no, I mean, of course you don't need to control the ambient temperature. But for the concept of the mattress, we still need to control the ambient temperature, because we just with the mattress we just open up the vessels to do the heat transfer with the environment, and we still need a cooler temperature in the environment than our core body temperature, so the heat transfer would be from the body to the environment.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that basically uh, the basics is that you need to control to get this specific temperatures in different regions of the body, and it depends on the environment if you have to cool down to achieve those temperatures or heat up.
Exactly.
Did you, yeah, so you would need to include basically, uh, a surrounding temperature adjustment, basically. Like you would need to have the option of cooling down, or which you have when you're.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Um, yeah, I still think it's really interesting to look at, just from what I said before, to look at, just study different regions around the world, how temperature is manipulating in people, melatonin production. I think that would be a really interesting study, but it would be really hard to do, right? to go around the world and measure melatonin, and then check how people are sleeping. I would
Yeah.
very involved. But it would be interesting to just, you know, out of curiosity, I think. I see Mona that joined the stage, and I wanted to check in with you how much time you have, if you have time for one more question, or no more questions, a few more questions, basically.
I'm available.
Okay, great. So
That's it. He's officially in clubhouse mode. Like now we're just chilling and
Yeah.
hanging out. There you go.
so feel free to give us feedback, but yeah, come on then. Wonderful. Yeah, Mona, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi Katrina. So I was like reading parts of the paper and it sounds really amazing. But I wanted to know, is it self-adjusting? So like during the night, let's if you have maybe a fever, you know, sometimes it's recommended to have like a cool towel. Would the bed self-adjust the temperature? um, for that, or like let's say a woman who's undergoing menopause, they get hot flashes. Is it self-adjusting or does it stay constant over the night?
So the bed that we tested, it didn't have feedback system that get the feedback and adjust the temperature. But that's something that actually we are interested to do, to like adjust the temperature, learn from. So that's something that we can do, actually learn from the pattern of sleep for few nights and then adjust the temperature for each person. But for this one, the purpose was, I mean, this paper was a proof of concept, and it was not the self-adjusted.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I skimmed the paper. I didn't. I just skimmed a little bit, but yeah, it sounds very promising for not just the general public, but like even elderly patients. It sounds very promising. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dipti, I think you and Mike, do you have a question? Or Leah joined the stage. Joe.
Oops, sorry, that was a mistake. But hi, everybody. Just listening.
Oh, sure. Thanks for coming. Leah or Kiko, Joe, Brahma, did you have questions?
Just to jump real quick, actually, what Susie was saying, I asked Dan, who we were talking about with the Q strips, the same question about hormone levels and how that affects. So that'll be interesting to see. But Katerina, it's lovely to be in a room with you. It's been a long time. Nice to see your face and hear your voice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah, I agree. It has been a while, so yeah, thanks for hanging out here with us.
Hi, Katerina. This is Leia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little bit low, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'll speak up. So thanks for having me. Love this conversation. So I myself, I'm in a tropical country, and I have this thing where my hands heat up. So at night, nighttime is a nice time to cool down, right? Because in the tropics we have a lot of sun, a lot of heat, and the temperature is naturally high. So at night, what we do, we use air conditioning, and I'm thinking, um, so does this mattress, this heating, would a cooling down thing also be a thing where it would be beneficial for me? Like I would need something to cool down, right? Like everything here is about cooling down, so air conditioning and the mattress. I wouldn't want it to heat me up, but rather like cool me down. So I was just wondering about that. Thank you. This is late.
Sorry, I couldn't hear very well. So the question was that if this mattress can help with cooling down the body temperature?
Yes, basically, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. So basically, we need a lower body temperature to fall asleep. And although we warm up the neck area, but the purpose is to cool down the whole body temperature. And the reason that we warm up those areas is to open up the vessels in the hands and feet, so the more blood flow goes to those areas, and that blood flow bring the heat from the core of our body to surface and reject it to the environment, and therefore the body temperature goes down. So although we warm up some area, but the final output is lower body temperature, and we want to cool down the body.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So is there actually a function where the hands are being cooled down as well? Do I understand that correctly?
No. So basically, we need warm hands and feet to fall asleep. So, and that's for two reasons. One reason is that the temperature difference between hands and feet with the central area of the body. That's one of the indicators for a start of sleep. So there are studies shows that even if you have like this, if we don't change the core body temperature and we just warm up the hands and feet, it helps us to fall asleep. This is one way that warm hands and feet helps. The other way is that when we warm up when the hands and feet are warm, it means that they are the AVAs in the hands and feet are vasodilated, and our body temperature is going down. So it means that it's helping to lower the body temperature. Therefore, we fall asleep faster. I mean, in general, altogether, we need warm hands and feet to fall asleep. That's not a bad thing to have warm hands when you go to bed. That's what we need.
Okay, that's interesting. So like the warming of the hands could be like a function for falling asleep?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot fall asleep with cold feet. That's horrible.
You know, it's a funny follow on in the warm climates that, the limbs get used as, sort of heat fins. And, it's a condition where the core temperature is generally too hot and you want to dissipate heat. And so the limbs go out, either hands go out, sometimes you kick off the comforter or you expose the feet and you generally want to radiate that heat. And so, there's all kinds of mechanisms that will, induce, body configurational changes just for, the sole purpose of thermal control. And, some of it's conscious before you pass out. And if you ever watch somebody who's passed out next to you, you see it happens in their sleep too. And, sometimes all kinds of coordinated behavior kick off, blankets, and so forth. It's a curious thing if there's a mattress doing all that for you, whether it would really work or if you're up against habitual behavior or, at what time do you give the thermal temperatures to give the right signaling to avoid the drastic changes in body configuration, which would complicate the thermal management in the device. Um, it's an interesting engineering problem.
Definitely.
I think having to do all these movements would kind of interrupt the sleep, and that could be a reason why melatonin levels would stay not in like the good range, because having to like usually during sleep the body actively inhibits all kind of um motor neuron, except like for involuntary motor system, but for voluntary ones it's actually actively inhibited. And if you have to kind of actively use your body to like cool down and stuff to be comfortable, that might contribute to a lower melatonin level, so the body still has kind of control, because with higher levels there should be more active inhibition. And then it's kind of an early sign also of Parkinson's and disease, that you kind of don't have control over, like you don't have this effective inhibition during sleep, and you do this uncontrolled movements and stuff. So that could be the mechanism why melatonin kind of stays low, if the regulation of temperature is not done by something else than your body.
Actually, so one thing that I should also mention is that melatonin, the body temperature doesn't control melatonin. Melatonin control the body the body temperature. So basically, melatonin control the sleep in two paths. One is directly send signal for sleep. The other one is that when we have melatonin in our blood, it also causes the vasodilation in the vessels, and it causes the lower the body temperature and help body to fall asleep. So melatonin can lead the body temperature, but it's not the other one, the other way. The changing in body temperature cannot increase the amount of melatonin.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. I was just thinking, if you kind of, for example, to cool down, you have to kind of put away your blanket while you sleep and things like that to regulate the temperature. Um, to do that, usually your body doesn't want you to use your legs and arms and stuff.
All
So
right.
probably melatonin level has to stay relatively low for you in order for you to be able to do that, in healthy people. Because if melatonin is high enough, you shouldn't be able during deep sleep to use your body, basically. You just
Yeah, that's right.
But that would be also interesting to measure. Is there a way, like, how did you measure melatonin? Um, is there a way to measure constantly melatonin? Is there maybe a sensor we could have in our watches, like some new?
No, it's not out there yet. So basically, for the sleep studies, they wake up the subjects every couple hours. That's how they measure.
Well, what's wrong with the Apple Watch? There isn't like alcohol and glucose and so going to be measured through sensors in the future in the Apple Watch. That would be something, if there would be also a melatonin sensor. I don't know how easy it would be to build
Yeah.
something. Mayor, do you have an idea? Maybe, or anyone?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about like vibrations, man. Like with quantum, like the nose. It turns out the nose doesn't like smell stuff; it actually listens to stuff, right? So, like, uh, I'm just curious to know, like, I think there could be a lot of breakthroughs whenever you start to detect the vibrations of things, right? And I don't know if what is the vibrating patterns of cells in the body that you know. I mean, I don't know. You just had some AI run through it, right? Maybe you could just sit there and like scan a body and every single, you know, vibration feature you could get out of it. And if you did all that with healthy bodies and unhealthy bodies, you could probably run AI and get all types of patterns, that come out of that. So I don't know. I've recently just been playing around with just at a high level. I think detecting vibrations of molecules would be pretty cool. To like get all types of interesting things to happen.
I think actually Io is working on some similar or along the lines you're thinking for the pathogen detection research he was doing.
Yeah, because that would be really interesting to for a lot of people to measure melatonin levels. I would assume that because you know also in depression in all kinds of mental health disorders or neurodegenerative disorders, development disorders, usually melatonin levels are also affected. So that would be to have like a good monitor would be really important to a lot of people, I think. Ben, you joined the stage. Do you have an idea or comment that you wanted to add?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Katerina. Yeah, I have a couple of really basic questions I wanted to ask Shahab, maybe somebody else, regarding melatonin. So one is melatonin is useful for both helping you fall asleep as well as after you've fallen asleep, it helps you maintain the sleep so that you don't wake up in the middle of the night. Or if you do wake up to go to the bathroom, and it's easier for you to fall back to sleep when you come back from the bathroom break in the middle of the night if you take melatonin beforehand. That's my first question, if someone can just confirm that. And then I'll ask my second question.
So basically, melatonin is important for initiating a sleep. So it's important to fall asleep, and it almost has the same pattern during the night. It has the same pattern as the body temperature. So it is like higher during the first half of the night, and then it starts to drop in the second half. That's when the body temperature also goes up. But the main role is to help you fall asleep, initiating a sleep.
Okay, got it. So what about in terms of dependency? If I started taking melatonin every day for a few months and I stop, will I have any sort of a coffee withdrawal symptoms or any sudden changes because I'm not taking melatonin for whatever reason, lack of availability or I forgot? Is there any memory effect of melatonin that would be very significant, or not? If I can just pick it up, after a couple of months, I can start taking melatonin again to help me fall asleep.
Yeah, melatonin doesn't make habits, so no, there's no continuous effect. I mean, when you stop it, you stop it. It doesn't make habits of using it.
That's great. So if I were to take melatonin versus say Ambien or something, presumably melatonin does not make me drowsy during the daytime, whereas some other sleeping pills might give me that effect, the next morning or something. Is that true?
Uh, it depends. I mean, it depends on when you take it. If you take it in the morning, it might. I mean, it makes you a little sleepy. But melatonin has the minimal side effects. I mean, that's almost the safest option. But and yeah, if you take it at night, usually you won't. It doesn't affect your sleep time performance. It won't make you sleepy during the daytime.
That's great. I believe the commercially available ones are 10 milligrams or 5 milligram. Does it matter if I take a lower dose or higher
No,
dose
10.
in
So
terms of side effect?
actually, the 10 is so high. So that's interesting that they tested different doses, and it seems like the 3 milligrams is the optimal one. So when you take it higher, it actually doesn't help you and might have uh, opposite effects. So actually, don't go that high. Usually the 3 milligrams is the optimal, and if you want to start using, maybe start with one and then go up to maybe 3 or so. See what's the best for you.
I'm sorry, did you say 2 milligram is the optimal? I didn't hear you. Sorry
Three,
about that.
three.
3. Okay, got it. Thanks. Oh, okay. And then the over-counter ones would be fine, right? I think melatonin is not prescription based. You can
It's
just
not
go and get it
prescription. No.
yourself. Oh, okay, all right.
And I mean,
And
most of them, when they say, for example, 10 milligram on them, they are not really 10. I mean, they don't measure it that accurately. So most of them, when it's not exactly the amount that they mention on the label. So
is this supposed to be instantaneous, the effect? Let's say if I'm insomniac, and then as soon as I take melatonin tonight, I would immediately get better sleep over the tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or does it take a couple of weeks, a few days to build up the effect before I can see the impact of melatonin?
No, melatonin doesn't have that the build-up effect. So basically, melatonin, you have is a circadian rhythm of melatonin. It is higher during the night and it is almost zero during the daytime. So when you take the melatonin at night, the level of melatonin in your blood goes high. It helps the vessels to open up, and then the body temperature drops, and the message goes that you should fall asleep. So basically, the effect should be immediately. The night that you use it, you should see the effect because your amount of melatonin goes up at that exact same night, and all the afterward effects happens exactly the same night.
Oh, you mentioned circadian rhythm. It's interesting. So if I'm traveling internationally, when you say nighttime or daytime, you mean literally when I arrive in a new country, I would follow the nighttime and the daytime uh, of that location, regardless whether my body where I came from has a different time, different system, a different rhythm of night or evening, right? So if I'm arriving in a new country and it's in the evening, I can just take a melatonin, even though my brain is still sort of daytime, if you will, coming from my old country. And
Yeah.
melatonin would work as well in that circumstance, correct?
So basically, melatonin is one of the ways that people use for controlling the jet lag, but it's not like, for example, here it's now, let's say it's you usually asleep at midnight, and when you go to another country, it is at noon. If you take the melatonin at that time, I mean, it cannot uh, change your circadian rhythm that quickly. So the best way is to move it slowly. So, for example, uh, start like to change to switch it by 3 hours, and then the next night another 3 hours. Give it like three to four nights, and move it like 2 hours, 3 hours each night to make it like normal in the new country. You cannot like change the circadian rhythm by 12 hours in just one night very quickly. It should be a step by step in few nights. But in general, yes, melatonin is one of the methods for to control the jet lag when you go to a new time zone.
That's a very good point. Thank you so much. I think that's very helpful. So melatonin is not a magic pill, kind of like these sleeping pills that can just knock you out right away,
No, no,
but
no.
rather it works slowly, gradually. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah,
Thanks, I appreciate it.
sure.
A bit of a nerdy question.
How does
Oh, sorry.
as far as exercise, because you were telling us earlier that like like for example like when you take melatonin. Sorry, earlier you were saying like take a shower, like a hot shower, 2 hours before you sleep, right? Because so you want your core to cool down. What about exercise? Like when is the ideal time to exercise so that you can fall asleep easier?
So for exercise, all the studies shows that when it is so close to sleep, it's not helpful, because basically you are increasing your body temperature, and the difference between so when we say you take hot shower like 1 to 2 hours before sleep, that's hot shower, but it lower your body temperature afterward. But exercise is not like that. If you do the exercise like 1 to 2 hours before sleep, it increases your body temperature, but after that it stays high. I mean, it doesn't lower. It doesn't help to lower the body temperature. So basically, it's better to do it at least a few hours before you go to bed, because if you do it very close to bed, your body temperature goes up, and that's not what we want to fall asleep. We want lower body temperature.
So in that regard, Shahab, what about sunlight? So if I'm traveling to an overseas country, getting myself exposed to the sunlight, that also helps. And does that work in conjunction with the melatonin, as in the sunlight is somewhat regulating my secretion, my brain secretion of
Yes,
melatonin?
definitely. Yes,
Okay.
definitely. So the light both has effect on the melatonin and body temperature. So uh, if you get to the bright light or sunlight, it definitely can improve the the adaptation of the circadian rhythm, because it can both control the melatonin and the body temperature.
Can I ask a question if you've done any research on this, even though I'm coming in late, about the effects of trauma and sleep, specifically people that have complex PTSD and even childhood trauma, and how in some instances melatonin is not helpful, but in general, the correlation between trauma and really disruptive sleep?
I personally don't have any experience in this one, so I don't know the answer.
So if I can ask a question that goes back a little bit when we were talking about spreading hands and feet. I remember reading a study on the cerebrospinal fluid and the way that side sleepers versus people that sleep on their back and the way it's circulating. So I'm wondering if there are any differences between side sleepers and others in terms of, I feel as though a side sleeper would be conserving heat because you're kind of, yeah, stacked atop yourself in a way.
Uh, basically, so your question is that if the side sleeper compared to back sleepers
Yeah.
have effect on like the body temperature, or in
Yeah,
general,
and
if
then if that impacts the sleep quality, or I mean, if they're moving differently, or possibly because the side sleeper, as I understand it, is turning all through the night and kind of maintaining a balance between, which side they're on.
actually, I personally haven't seen any study to compare these two one. I mean, studies compared like sitting position compared to lying down, and definitely lying down improved the drop in body temperature, but I haven't seen any study that compare like sleeping on side compared to back and its effect on like the body temperature. I don't know that answer. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks.
Hey, Shahab, is it true that during aging, the production of melatonin gets reduced in humans? Do you know if there's a plateau, if there's a curve from age 0 to age, I don't know, 80, sort of the average concentration of melatonin secreted by average person's brain? And what is the sort of the decay curve? What does that look like?
So yes, the by aging the amount of melatonin would decrease, and also the other change that affect sleep is that the difference between the drop in body temperature would be also lower. So that's also something that we need to fall asleep. It's not just the absolute body temperature; it is the amount of drop in body temperature, and this amount of drop in body temperature would be lower when for older people, and that's why usually they have more sleep problems. So both melatonin and body temperature are affected by aging in a bad way for sleep.
Okay, I see. But are you saying that the amount of melatonin impacts body temperature, or something else impacts body temperature, that it works in conjunction with a level of melatonin?
So basically, the body temperature is controlled by by at least two mechanisms. One is that the melatonin itself open up the AVA, so the body temperature drops. The other one is through the hypothalamus. That's the one that we actually use to trick the body that thinks the body temperature is high, and it starts the mechanism to lower it. So both of these mechanisms change the amount of control the body temperature. There is no study that says that the reason for like the lower difference between daytime and nighttime body temperature in older people is just because of the melatonin or also other mechanisms. I haven't seen that kind of studies that see how much of that effect is because of the melatonin and how much is because of other other parameters.
Sure. Are there any diet, foods, or any other factors that would increase the concentration, the level of melatonin for adults? Or is it just a natural secretion of the brain that there cannot be helped other than taking external exogenous melatonin?
Uh, I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know if there are foods that can improve the amount of melatonin. I don't know that one.
Sure, sure, no problem.
It's
By the
okay.
way, as far as the research goes, what is currently the common popular system that people are studying circadian rhythm in terms of the emulate the melatonin changes that can help us to understand human sleep pattern? I remember in my days, it was people are looking at bioluminescence, luciferase stuff in bacteria. This is many, many years ago, but nowadays, what are the organisms that are being used in studying circadian rhythm?
So basically, there's the field is now much different. I mean, the main focus is right now is on like see the effect of like the circadian rhythms on the future risk for like cardiovascular disease or dementia or these kind of things. The main focus of the field is nowadays in these kind of things, but still to study like the sleep pattern. I mean, the gold standard always was the DIL mode, which is the amount of the difference between melatonin at the nighttime and the daytime, and it has been since I guess at least more than 50 years, and that's still the same thing nowadays. There are not much difference in that aspect, but totally, I mean, in general, in the field of circadian rhythm, the focus is now more on like controlling like the blood pressure by circadian rhythm and these kind of things. It's not much more on like the molecular stuff or uh, it's more like epidemiological questions right now in the field of like the circadian rhythms and chronobiology.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Um, I thought of something else that's kind of related to this, but there are some people that can sleep 4 hours a day, every day for months on end, and they're fine. They can function really, really well. Others need really 8 or even more. Does that have anything to do with the level of melatonin, or there's some other factors attributing to different people can function differently with a different amount, equally with a different amount of hours of sleep?
Mm. So one major thing that for like the amount of the sleep time and the performance during the day is there are usually people who need to get more sleep is like they either have the sleep apnea, so basically although they think that they slept the whole duration of the night, but for the epochs of the apnea or hypopnea, which happens when they cannot they don't get they can't breathe for more than 3 seconds. On that epochs, there's like arousal in their EEG, and they're kind of awake. It's like they get up, wake up, and then they sleep again. So when they in the morning they think that they sleep like 8 hours, but when you look at their sleep pattern, you see that they woke up several times, and that's because of the apnea. That's one thing. The other one is the hypersomnia. That's not very common in people, but that's also one condition that you sleep like 8 hours, but still you feel sleepy during the day. That's not very common, and usually the treatment for that is they give this kind of people the serotonin, so they feel more awake during the day. So I mean, what happens basically a standard sleep time, the best one is 7 to 8 hours, and when you sleep less than that, even though if you might feel as you can do some you can have some performance, but it shows that after a few years it's with higher risk of cardiovascular disease or dementia. So it's not recommended to sleep less than 7 hours, even though if you feel like rested in the morning. And definitely for the longer, when you sleep like 9-10 hours and you still feel sleepy, something happens during your sleep. It's most likely some kind of sleep apnea, or maybe it's hypersomnia or something like that.
Right. Okay, great. So I guess I was thinking something kind of like a wild, which is that if we have learned enough about sleeping and melatonin, such that we're able to either produce a drug like melatonin or a particular sleep approach so that many more people can function properly by, like you're mentioning, the quality of the sleep by like keeping, say, shorter amount of sleep but higher quality so that more people can enjoy shorter amount of sleep with equal effect than the 7 or 8 hours. And of course, they can have the extra hours during productive things, presumably. So do you think that kind of a philosophy, that kind of thinking is possible if we learn more about the process of sleeping and study more about things like melatonin?
I believe so, but again, at this point, what literature shows that people who sleep less than 7 hours, even if they don't have any complaint about their sleep, and even if they have good performance during the day, they are in higher risk of like hypertension and cardiovascular disease and dementia in future. So at this point, I mean, with our current knowledge, it's not recommended to sleep for shorter duration, even if you feel rested in the morning. But I mean, in future, if at some point we figure out, for example, I don't know, the main parts are we just need like to have spend more time on deep sleep and REM sleep, and we have methods that can control microstructure of sleep to just increase the duration of these two sleep and lower the light sleep. So we get less, for example, light sleep, more deep sleep, more REM sleep, and therefore the total duration of sleep would be less with the same performance and same future risk of diseases. That's something that might happen in the future, but with our current knowledge, it's not recommended to try to lower the sleep duration, even if you can.
Yeah, we
Great, that's
have
very encouraging. Thank you so much. Thank you.
yeah,
Sure.
we had a guest speaker here on Clubhouse a little while ago, was months ago. I think maybe end of last year or yeah, sometime last year. Dr. Fu, I think she's at Berkeley or San Francisco University, and they found that a few people have genes that are kind of elite sleepers. That's how she named it in the paper. That when you have these elite sleeping genes, those protect you from aging and Alzheimer's and dementia. So these are people that sleep extra well, and the research is still ongoing, like how exactly those genes do it, and have very low occurrence of all kinds of mental health disorders and like aging. They age slower, and so sleep is really important.
Yeah, certainly. I think I wish there was a magic gene that we can just use CRISPR or something to modify the general populace sleeping pattern. But I'm inclined to agree with Shahab that the total number of hours is relatively, if I'm understanding you correctly, still important. Even though people
Yes,
with 3 or 4 hours of sleep claim they function really, really well during the daytime, still there may be hidden dangers that may impact their cardiovascular system, et cetera, et cetera. So
exactly.
I think, yeah, next time I see my friend, some of my friends are claiming they can go by with 4 hours every day for weeks on end with no problems. And if they say that to me again, I'll have more come back to them with what I learned from you today.
Yeah, exactly. That's
By the way, what was the genes that was discussed by this other guest speaker, Katarina? I wasn't in that room at the time. Any
Yeah,
papers, any reference,
yeah.
did he
I'm
mention
trying
one
to
or two
find the
genes
paper.
or something?
It was a huge paper. She's a really famous sleep scientist. Let me find it. She's a very I'll find it and share it in the chat in a minute.
Shahab, is there like a good animal model that people use now for studying sleep patterns and testing maybe drugs or therapies that can emulate good human, close enough to human sleeping system, like a rabbit or mice or C. elegans, whatever. Any modeling that we can use?
Most of the papers on animal studies was on rabbit, what I saw, but I'm not familiar with this field. I mean, with animal studies. But what I saw in the literature, whatever I saw was on rabbits. But it's not like a scientific answer. It's just what I saw. I'm not familiar with the field.
Oh, sure, thanks. Did you say rabbit or is that
Yes,
rabbit?
rabbit.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Oh, not even monkeys or something?
At least I haven't seen, but again, don't count on what I say.
Sure, sure, sure. Thanks.
I found the article, but I shared the article, but I'll find the real paper soon. Yeah.
ADRBI is the
Oh,
gene
yeah,
approved.
it was San Francisco. Dr. Fu Lab at the University of San Francisco. If you Google her, oh, there it is. So mice are also used to do this type of work. Of course, there are mouse models now for everything where you have kind of different. Yeah, this is her lab website, and yeah, you can check out her work. She has a lot of work about sleep.
I'm
It
sorry, Catherine, is that the Cell paper or is that the Economic Times article
Yeah, just at the
that's
lab
referring to?
website, her lab website. There you can find all her public.
Oh, oh, sorry, I got it. Yeah, Yinghui Fu, Dr. Fu. Okay,
Yeah,
got it. Oh, he's at UCSF?
yeah. Yeah, she was here a while. Let me check the date. You can maybe find in my profile the
Or like a replay, maybe?
was April 11. But I think I'm not sure if it was this year or last. Yeah, April 11. Yeah, she was here April 11. So you can find the replay. I can also share the replay. It was really interesting talk she gave.
Yeah, just from the title, there's a word dementia in it. So I was wondering whether something like a melatonin, which we're talking about today, whether that has some impact on dementia, on memory. Maybe sleep and memory, those two things are somewhat correlated or related in some ways.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great to get into. Maybe if you can, doctor, if you can maybe talk to us a little bit about sleep and dementia and like what the effects of skipping sleep. I'd personally like to know this because I skipped a lot of sleep. I was like, especially during the pandemic, I'd be up like 2 days, 3 days at a time for pretty much 2 years. Um, so what's
And just quickly to give background about like this room and the story is like this Jean apparently she studied people and there were people like that longevity wise were older in their years and still running marathons but perhaps having 5 hours a night sleep. Um, it this gene seems to have like even something to do with their immune systems. So people, I remember saying like people that weren't getting sick as often or frequently, um, yet we're still able to have like basically what a normal person would have in 8 hours or 7 to 9 hours, in approximately about like 5 hours of sleep or something is what I remember, and it be possibly perhaps due to this particular gene. So I don't know if she was making that link right there in the room, but it was a very amazing room, and I'll be quiet now.
Okay, yeah. So back to this dementia and sleeping. I just know when I don't sleep well, the next day I'm not really very sharp. I can't really, I mean, I'm not sharp to begin with, but I just can't recall things that I would have otherwise, I would be able to recall had I had a good night's sleep. So this is extremely anecdotal, obviously, but I was wondering maybe that there is some common underlying mechanistic action mechanism that are similar between how we regulate sleep with melatonin and how the memory cells work or function. That's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, but finding some correlation between those two phenomena would be very interesting.
So, as much as I'm aware, so there are the studies that I'm aware of is that uh, the short sleep duration was they were in higher risk of Alzheimer's disease in future. The people with sleep apnea have higher risk of Alzheimer. And then the interesting one was that the sleep pattern itself. So basically, there is the interdaily variability in your activities or activity patterns. So basically, it means that they measure it by like actigraph, and there's a parameter interdaily activity, and basically it means that if your sleep time changes a lot between each night. So for example, if one night you sleep at like 8 p.m., wake up at 6, and then the next night you sleep at midnight, the other night at 9. If you change when there is much different, when there's changes between nights in your sleep pattern, that's also significantly associated with future risk of Alzheimer's diseases. So these are the three things that I have seen in the literature so far. But there might be other component of insomnia which are associated, but these three are definitely associated. And the interesting one for me myself was the one that the interchange between the daily activity.
There's a paper I posted in the chat earlier, which might go to the mechanism, and it was to do with the cerebrospinal fluid and the role that it plays in clearing debris and whatnot from the brain when sleeping. And one might suspect that the tangled towels and these kinds of things, if one doesn't undergo this process, nightly, if you're skipping your sleep and everything, that they may accumulate and then have, deleterious effects over the longer term. So plausible, I guess, mechanism there.
I don't know. Is it just me, or is like I can't hear anything? Was it just me, or is my connection bad, basically? Or
No, we can hear
oh,
you.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking about that elite sleeper gene, and it almost sounds too good to be true because if you imagine that it does all that it supposedly does, just from what I'm hearing on the surface, then you would think that gene would spread throughout the population. I suppose unless maybe it was a new mutation or it has some downside, maybe like there's some epidemic disease that it makes you more susceptible to or something like that. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, it's so she's been doing this. She also has TED Talks and stuff, and um, so what she did in the latest paper was she took this short sleep mutations, like she took those versions of these genes and put them into mice that are mouse models for Alzheimer's pathology, and these genes that you find in these families, they protected basically the animals from Alzheimer's disease, for example. So this was quite significant, and then she published other papers showing, other beneficial effects, that microglia are involved in the protection of memories that are being formed um, during sleep deprivation and so on. Like, yeah, check out her lab website. There's also a TED Talk on there and all the different studies. It's yeah, it's really interesting, and she gave a really really good talk, general talk about sleep, about her studies in general, not just that one paper that I invited her for. She gave a talk about her whole research that she's been doing, I don't know, 20 years longer. It's yeah, it's really amazing work.
Yeah, and I wasn't meaning to sound like I was doubting her work. It just seems like there there's some mystery about it still, huh? And like maybe it did arise more recently, or maybe it's really only very helpful when we're in a society where we have to deal with diseases of aging or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like back in time, who cares? Like if you make it over 50, like you had your kids, you're done. You know, like I don't think, was a big selective pressure to be a good ager, basically. I think that's very recent, and only not, and also not for all the population around the world still. It's probably even bad, right? The longer we live, the more resources we spend, then it's probably not even that good for the planet. I don't know. I mean, for our healthcare system and so on, it's probably good, but if you think of it, to have species live way longer than their productive um, age, you know, to be very cold hearted right now, it's probably not a good idea, like a not good strategy, because you want those resources for like the next generation, the next generation, and the next. So it's probably even, the opposite, maybe even the opposite selective pressure somehow.
Here's an interesting fact to that, right? 50% of the healthcare spend is on the last 6 months of life.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I was thinking to Katarina's question, I think it really depends. It's not a matter of just extending life so that you're unproductive, but maybe once we know more about these things, you can live longer and you can be more productive. For example, if you're healthy enough, you sleep well, and you're conscious, you don't have dementia, and you're 90 years old, you can do a lot of good things, with
yeah,
your
I'm
life
not
experience,
that.
right?
Yeah, I'm not arguing for letting people age badly. No, I was just saying for a selective pressure during evolution, where you didn't have endless resources, you didn't adapt basically the environment to your needs and everything. It was very limited food, depending on the time of the year and where you live around the world. Food was very limited. It's probably not there was probably back in time not the selective pressure necessarily in most places, not every place, but in most places, to age. That was not, and it's probably wasn't even realistic that you make it, because you would die from like very basic bacterial infections quite slowly, but you would die from it eventually. So I don't think it was a factor.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have heard there's arguments about this topic, and I think they even call it like the grandmother effect or something, that really there was some benefit to having elderly people around to take care of the little ones and to, carry down traditions and wisdom and, remembering a bad season 50 years ago and where you found the game and, all that kind of stuff. So I think they call it the grandmother effect or something.
Yeah, and I think
Well, in my culture, that's definitely the case, Joyce. We have a saying of like an older person in the household is worth her body in gold or something. I'm just making this up, something like that. So definitely there was a sense of respecting, not just respecting elderly because they're older, but rather, it's utilitarian because a lot of the experiences and life lessons that they gained during their years work being alive really had contributed a lot to the well-being of the whole household. And I think I'll just say this: I think with the way we're going towards metaverse or online world versus using our physical muscles and the farming with the manual labor, I think that might be even more true going forward.
Yeah, and I think the menopausal process itself is where the grandmother effect is pointing to, because it's an odd thing to have evolved. And also the gene, I just wanted to point out that it's typically, we haven't been able to isolate a gene where there is a single function being served. So they typically have a multivariate, effect. So it may be the case that there is some, hidden downside to having this gene that doesn't have to do with sleep, or is manifested in some other area.
Yeah, I'm definitely for healthy aging and, having a great long life, like for sure. Um, so I was just, commenting on why maybe that gene is not too common, but I think environment is also very important, like lifestyle and things like that. I think if you have those genes, but you drink a lot and kind of do drugs and all fast foods all day, I don't think no matter what your genes are, you will probably age pretty bad. So I don't think your genes can protect you from everything. So lifestyle, I think is still one of the biggest factors there.
I just find it funny how everybody's like. I wonder when our society will kind of shift and we go into like true quality of life over like um, extension of life, right? Like me personally, I would much prefer to have like a vibrant, rich, risk-filled life, and die young, honestly, right? Like I don't feel like like man, I think about being like 80 years old or something, or 90 years old, or 70 years old even, right? Like I'm like, man, they're like every 70-year-old I know is like hurting, you know. They got stuff that don't work, you know. It's seems like in the 60s you're all right, like you can kind of make it through the 60, 50, 40, 50, 60, and then like kind of at the end of your 60s things really start to deteriorate, is what I've
Yeah,
seen.
the one thing I would say is that to that point, I think we have you know not euthanasia, what do you call it? I guess it is euthanasia. In many countries, it's starting to be more acceptable for someone to decide to, die on their own terms, and like assisted suicide, if you will. So I think that could be one answer to help people to decide, whether they think themselves as a lack of quality of life, if they say terminal stage cancer, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those two things are actually going towards helping humans to live better life, more productive life, and more choice with respect to how they want to lead their lives. On the one hand, older people can be more productive, healthier, and contribute more to the society. And on the other hand, individuals who do want to have a freedom of choice of deciding how they want to live their lives or death are able to do so.
There's a Dr. Peter Attia that some people follow his newsletter and things, and he has coined a term, the Centenarian Olympics, and he says he's training for them. He used to be, really heavy duty, like triathlons and all that kind of stuff, but then he had a kind of a health crisis, and he ended up lifestyle, and then deciding that he was going to train for the Centenarian Olympics, and decide his view of it was that he'd come up with a list of things that he wanted to be able to do when he was 100, and like walk up the 2 flights of stairs carrying 2 bags of groceries, or being able to sit on the floor and play with his grandchildren. And so anyway, he says he's training for that.
Yeah, I literally just read an article about a couple of hours ago. Someone who's under 105 ran 100 meters, and was disappointed because she couldn't make it under a minute. So she was hoping to do it when she's going to be 106 and run it under 1 minute. I thought that's very exciting and very encouraging. And she looks on the picture as extremely in good shape. Obviously, she was able to run 100 meters in under a minute, being 105 years old. So I think that's actually fabulous.
Yeah, I was going to put a plug in for the new kind of data, and all the monitors, Apple Watch, so on. Getting more data on ourselves so we can optimize better and theoretically get healthier with lifestyle. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, so it was hopeful. My grandmother just passed this year, but she was 95 and she could still recite poetry from when she was a child. She was sharp as a tack. I mean, she had a memory better than I do, I think. I can't recite poetry that I read last week.
Okay, so by the way, guys, Doctor, I'm gonna try saying it right. Haghayegh, wait, Haghayegh, right? Did I say it right?
Haghayegh. Shahab Haghayegh.
Haghayegh,
Haghayegh, yes.
Haghayegh. Okay, so Doctor Haghayegh here has like I don't know, like 12 degrees or something. I'm not kidding. He really does. He has some advice. What do you got? What do you got? Like a master? They got like what? 3 masters or how many masters he got?
3.
3, yeah. So they range in everything. And then you got a PhD and like all this cool stuff, right? So we don't have to just talk about sleeping, by the way, the whole time, right? Like sleep. Like what other topics interest you? Because you got people on here that are pretty widespread. Like we all like to talk about different science, tech, kind of future tech kind of thing. So what other areas are you studying, or you're interested in, or you just in general want to talk about with the group?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm also interested. One of the things that I'm working is like using artificial intelligence for different different stuff, but mostly focusing on like a sleep time measurement. So one thing that I'm currently working is to see if we measure, for example, the EEG during sleep, and by using artificial intelligence, can we predict future risk of depression? And if someone has depression, can we figure out what kind of medication is best for that patient by seeing different patterns in like the EEG? So basically, ideally it would be something that can guide doctors when a depressed patient go to them, so they can do a one night EEG measurement, and then it gives the doctor some options that, hey, this line of treatment would work best for this patient. And this is something that I work. Basically, I like to use the sleep time measurements for predicting of future risk of diseases, because generally the sleep time measurements are the most accurate. When you do the measurements during the day, there are lots of other aspects that affect that measurement. So for example, I don't know, if for example you measure the blood pressure, when you go to doctor office, you don't know if that person came from a hot environment and outside, if the person ran to the office to be on time on the appointment. uh, Lots of stuff. I mean, if he's nervous now, if he's not, uh, that all of these affect the blood pressure measurement when you go to the doctor office. But at the night, everything is on the baseline. I mean, you don't have that much of those effects. That's the best kind of measurements you can do. So basically, I'm interested in physiological measurement during sleep, and also using like artificial intelligence for predicting the future risk of diseases.
And you had said, I forget. I wanted to ask this. I'm glad you brought this up. I think what were you saying? I didn't catch all of it earlier about the effects of temperature on blood pressure while sleeping. I thought I remember you mentioned that. I just wasn't an area that I caught all of it.
Yes, definitely. So basically, as I mentioned, the method that the body control the body temperature, the main one is by vasodilating and vasoconstricting the AVAs. And when the AVAs are vasodilated, so their diameter can reach up to 10 times higher than the diameter of capillaries. And by the law of fluid mechanics, when the diameter is 10 times bigger, the resistance to root flow is like 10,000 times less. And when you have less resistance to root blood flow, it means that your blood pressure goes down. And then we know that the sleep time blood pressure is associated with higher risk of future cardiovascular disease. So basically, by opening up the AVAs, you can also control the blood pressure and lower the blood pressure.
So by basically cooling down the body, you're going to decrease the blood pressure, in essence.
Uh, Basically, by warming up the neck area and the hand area, that's how we open up the AVAs.
Okay.
So
Okay. So
when you open up the AVAs, there are two effects. One is the blood pressure. The other one is that the body temperature goes down. So
wait, that's interesting. Okay, so you're cooling the interior body function, but you want okay. So neck, hands, and feet. You want warm. Body
yes,
you want cool, and
yes,
that's gonna that's. And if you make the neck if you make the neck, hands, and feet warm, that will actually make the body cooler.
yes, yes.
Wow, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, that's why it looks a little otherwise. I mean, the other way, because you expect when you warm up, the body temperature goes up, but it's the other way because when you warm up the neck, it opens up the AVAs, and when the AVAs are open, the blood flow goes from the core to the surface of hands and feet, and bring the heat from the core to the hands and feet, and lose it to the environment. So the body temperature goes down. Just I should mention that when I say warming the hands and feet, still the temperature is lower than the core body temperature. Not it's not like 40 degrees Celsius. It's like 33, 32 degrees Celsius. It's still lower than the core body temperature.
So, as I understand it, the men and women regulate differently, such that the woman optimizes for a higher core temperature and will often have a colder limb temperature. I mean, in waking states, and I'm curious if you, looked at that.
Yeah, basically, yeah, the body temperature, the core body temperature for women and men are different. It's also different by the age, older versus younger, and also by ethnicity, like for example, Asian, by black people. All of these affect the body temperature. But the important thing is that we need a drop in body temperature. So uh, whatever your body temperature is during the daytime, we need a drop in that body temperature during the nighttime to fall asleep. That's why we do this. I mean, it really doesn't matter if you are male or female, although the body temperature for male and female is different. But the important part to fall asleep is we make that drop in the body temperature.
And that also affects the nerve conduction, right? Because I had, I forget now what you call it, but they had to send shocks down for demyelinating condition. And one of the times I had the test done, they warmed my hands beforehand, and suddenly I performed much better. But it didn't actually mean that it was, that I was in a different clinical state. And that probably goes to what you were remarking on about wanting to measure in the natural environment.
Sorry, I didn't get what kind of measurements. What
For
measurements did you
the
do?
nerve conduction. So I can't remember now the name of the test where they put a needle in and they send a pulse down your arm and measure the actual speed of the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's temperature dependent as well. So you can warm the hands and have a higher conduction than you would if they were cold. Like there's a relationship there, I think, between yeah, the myelination, the nerve conduction speed, and the temperature.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't done research on that one, but that's interesting thing that you mentioned.
Wait, so what's the pressure? Okay, hold on. Okay, back to this like feet, hand, warm up your feet and hands. Okay, and neck. What's the
Yes.
difference? You're talking about. I know what you're saying about thermodynamics, right? Like when you were saying a 10,000, variation in the thickness of the tube, right? In essence, what is so?
No,
What
no,
is
not 10
the
times, not 10 times variation in the thickness of tube. So the diameter goes up 10 times, and then so if, uh,
flow?
yeah, the
Yeah, yeah.
diameter for the vessel for the AVS is 10 times larger than the capillaries. So when it
So
is
what's
vasodilated, there's less resistance to the blood flow, so the pressure goes down.
and how much like in your studies, like in your research, what's the variation? Like what percentage down?
So basically, our our subjects were healthy, so they were not hypertensive patients. That's one thing that we should consider. But even in this kind of patients, we saw 3 to 4 milliliter of Hg drop in their MAP, which is mean arterial blood pressure. But again, these were normal healthy people. If they are there were not much room to improve their blood pressure. When you have hypertensive subjects, we expect to see more effect on those people. But even in
Did you,
this kind of people, this is not a small. This is not a small effect.
okay? So, but I mean, but is that seems like that's like kind of general uh, knowledge, meaning you could tell anybody, hey, if you got high blood pressure, might be a good idea to put some socks on when you go to sleep, and have your hands and your neck and your feet warm, right?
Yes, definitely. So, or for example, when you feel like your blood pressure is high, something that my mom has a high blood pressure. So when she has high blood pressure, she take a warm bath, and that really helps her. After that, her blood pressure, she feels like that her blood pressure went down. So yeah, there's definitely association between these two, between the between the controlling system of body temperature and blood pressure.
So that's really interesting. Do you think there's so much more high blood pressure issues in developed countries, especially in the US, because we use ACs way too much? Maybe.
So that's also an interesting question, because there's a problem right now with the definition of blood pressure. So right now, the way that we define people, like if they are hypertensive or they are not, is by the measurements which happens in the doctor's office. So you go to doctor office, you don't know what was the situation before that, you don't know what time of the day. I mean, if you go, for example, 9 a.m., your blood pressure should be different compared to when you go at like 5 p.m. But we don't consider any of this. You go just to the doctor office, they measure it, and there's a cutoff. I don't know. For example, say if it's less than this number, you are normal. If it's above that number, you are abnormal. And then it turns out that this is not really significant predictor of future cardiovascular. So this is not really important, this measurement. The important one is the one that happens in the night, and more important than the absolute value of that blood pressure, the amount of drop in the blood pressure in the night compared to the daytime. That's the important one. So basically, right now, the definition of blood pressure has problem. I mean, we don't consider any of these, and we just by one measurement in the doctor's office, we say this is hypertensive, this is not hypertensive. But right now, right now that the findings of these large cohort studies comes out, that shows that the nighttime sleep blood pressure is important. They started to thinking about changing the guidelines, that the way that they define the hypertension. And that's why I say we don't really know how many people right now have problem with the hypertension, because we don't have the correct measurements right now. The guideline is old. I mean, this is what happened like 50 years ago. We still use the same guidelines for defining the blood pressure. But right now, we have ambulatory blood pressure. We can measure for like 2 days every 2 hours, and then calculate the amount of the dipping in the nighttime sleep, and then that's the main thing. That's the important one. But this is not in the guideline right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have actually a guest speaker in the future presenting his work about using a ETA tool for continuous blood pressure measurement.
Yeah, University of Texas, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, let me check the August 29th. But I think it's because they are from Europe.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh wait, no. Let's
I
see.
know there's one
Oh,
study in University of Texas.
September 1st at 9 p.m. Dr. Curie. Maybe the date will still like the time will still change because I think oh no, two of the guest speakers are hi Alexa, sorry. Yeah, the time could change, but yeah, will be around September 1st, around that date.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I don't know if you are talking about the same study that I'm talking about. There was a recent one published, and they did the tattoo, and like the problem was the sample size was really small. It was like 8 people, and it's still not that accurate. I mean, but that's a good first step. I mean, we should move in that way to do the tattoo sensors and these kind of things. But what the site that I'm talking is not something that you can use in population yet, but it is a good start point. But I think the best way right now, I mean, there are lots of watches that also claim that they measure the blood pressure continuously, but they are not accurate at all. I mean, they are accurate when you don't move at all. They work well on a dead person. When they don't move at all, then there's no artifact. But as soon as you have some kind of movement, the data is totally off. The most accurate one for now is like the traditional ambulatory one, which measure like we can measure every 2 hours. That's the best one for now. But I mean, that has lots of problems because, for example, during the sleep, if you wear it, it might wake you up because of the pressure it makes on you. So, but yeah, definitely this is some very interesting. If at some point we can get a continuous measure of blood pressure, that would make lots of ways for lots of researchers to see which one is important, and lots of people will figure out how's their situation regarding the blood pressure, and we won't need to rely on just one-time measurements in the doctor's office of blood pressure.
Well, at
All right,
least
I'd like to welcome to the stage Mary and Tomoko and Omar. I think, wait, Tomoko, did you just unmic? And Jimmy Gumdrops is there too, Joseph, so Joshua. I think, Tomoko, you just unmic, right?
Yes, at least in Japan,
All
yeah,
right, go ahead.
thank you. At least in Japan, many elderly are actually using the blood pressure machine at home because it's really well known, at least in Japan, that the blood pressures at hospitals are much higher than at home because people are so much precious or excited to see the white clothes by doctors and nurses.
Yes.
That's the symptom we usually say in Japan, at least. So the many elderlies are actually checking their blood pressures quite often at home, at normal situation in the morning or before they go back to sleep, or wherever doctor order them to check it. So it's really important for many people to buy or lease or whatever, and do the blood pressure testing by themselves to keep the track record and show the doctor. That's something people think about. I'm just speaking.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that we are addressing is like the white coat symptoms that people get nervous when they go to doctor, and that's definitely one of the problems with the blood pressure measurements in the doctor's office. But that's not the only problem. I mean, in general, even, I mean, for example, so the studies that measure the blood pressure every 30 minutes for 48 hours, they found that the daytime blood pressure is not that associated with the future risk of cardiovascular disease. The nighttime is important one. So basically, yes, that's one of the, I mean, definitely if you can measure it at home at the same time every day, that's much better than measuring it at the doctor's office. But still, that's not That's not what we need. We need something that can measure during the night and the day, and then we compare these two and calculate the amount of the dipping between the daytime and nighttime, between the nighttime and daytime. That's the important one.
Yeah, I agree with you. But at least better than nothing, because keep having the record of the changes might be better. And the tattoo seems to be quite a good solution, because keep checking is really important, like heartbeat. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if the e-tattoos at some point, if they works, they are really the best options. I mean, but they are not ready to, they are not at that stage yet. I mean, the ones that I'm aware of, they, for example, they can just measure for continuously for like 5 hours. Their accuracy is not that good. I mean, what I saw, it was like about 4 millimeter Hg off. So that's huge for blood pressure. At this point, they are not still ready to use. But if at some point they can measure for like 48 hours with a good accuracy, that's definitely the best option. I mean, even e-tattoos or maybe the smartwatches, if they really can measure the blood pressures. But at this point, still the smartwatches also cannot measure the blood pressure, although they claim that they measure and although they report some numbers about the accuracy of their watches, but all those numbers are when the subjects are not moving. As soon as you move, there are lots of artifacts in their signals, and it is totally off. I mean, it's really useless.
That's so
Speaking
true.
of speaking,
What's a good blood pressure monitor? Is it anything you get from the CVS drugstores? Would that be sufficient, those electronic ones? Or is there any gold standard that we can use that's more accurately measuring our blood pressure?
Yeah. So basically, the one that you put on your arm and it put pressure on your arm, those measure accurate. The numbers they give you are accurate. The watches that claim they measure the blood pressure, they are using like the like the PPG lights, and those are not accurate. I mean, the number is not accurate for those. But the ones that they put pressure on your arms, those are usually accurate. I mean, of course, it depends on the brand and this kind of things, but those are the golden standard right now. But for those, still they give you accurate number when you measure it. But the problem is that those numbers are not very important if you measure it one time during the day. The important thing is that you should be able to measure it several times at night, several times during the day, and then compare these two numbers. That's the important one to figure out your future risk of cardiovascular disease. I mean, at this point, we are able to measure the numbers accurately, but since they put pressure on your arm, you cannot people use it. I mean, some doctors prescribe it and use it for like 24 hours or 48 hours, but since it put pressure on your arm and these kind of things, it wake you up. And also the other problem is the price of these ambulatory ones. The ones that you can use it for like 48 hours, they are like at least $1,000. They are not cheap. But to answer your question, the one that you put on your arm, those give you accurate number, but still that number doesn't mean that much because that's not a good indication for future risk of cardiovascular disease.
Right. So because of the problems you mentioned, the pressure would wake you up. Are there people working on a surrogate approach to measure blood pressure, maybe via some other parameters, whether it's pulse or something else? I don't know. Are there anybody working on that to be able to measure multiple time points during the 24 hours so that it's practical without having the patient or the person themselves being woken up?
Yeah. So one thing that so Katrina mentioned is the tattoos, but they are not still at the stage that we can really use it in the population. They are at really early stages right now. The other one that lots of companies are working and lots of them are claiming that their system is work is like the smartwatches. But again, those are not accurate. But there are still also some other methods. For example, they put one sensor on close to your heart and one sensor on your finger, and then the time difference between the pulse between these two, the one in the close to heart and the one in the finger, that's associated with like the blood pressure. That's one of the things that more accurate. I mean, in the researches, usually people use this system, but this is also, I mean, this is expensive one, and it's not that easy to use it. We should wear it correctly. I mean, ideally, in the ideal world, we should have something like the smartwatch. Right now, they measure heart rate. Hopefully, in future, they should be able to measure like the blood pressure. That's something that they are working on it right now, but we don't have it yet.
I was going to make a comment that if you look up association between resting heart rate and all cause mortality, and also quite a lot of conditions, there are a lot of studies on that showing in several meta-analyses that resting heart rate is associated with all cause mortality, and it isn't just related to exercise. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, that's true. That's also one other parameter. I mean, the heart rate. Also, for that one, more than the resting, one of the studies that I have recently seen is that one also says that the dipping is more important than the absolute value at the rest. That one is also true. Yeah, I mean, heart rate is also one other parameter that's associated, but I mean, heart rate and blood pressure are not I mean, there are two different stories basically. So, but yeah, that's also something else that, for example, if you can measure the heart rate continuously during 24 hours and look at the dropping amount, that's much better than if you just measure your heart rate one time at the doctor office.
Okay, you mean the dropping amount? What do you mean by that?
The sleep time compared to the daytime. So
Like say
the average of the sleep time
okay
compared to the average of the not the sleep time.
okay but if it's the daytime, then it's only times when you're sitting or something like that, because you wouldn't want to include, you know, moving too much, right?
Yeah, because I mean at this, yeah. But for example, the ambulatory blood pressures that right now, the ones that they use for 48 hours measurement, which measure every 2 hours, that send you a notification like 1 minute before it starts, and at that point, it basically asks you to stop doing anything in physical activity, so it would be more accurate. But again, all of these are not really practical in large population and for everyday use. I mean, ideally, we should have something that can continuously and accurately measure. Right now, the movement make artifacts on all of these signals, and that's the problem. That's a big problem.
Do you think there's any way to be able to somebody build the non-invasive system? Because I prefer not wearing even watch, because I have the very sensitive skin, for instance.
Mm. So the ones that I have seen, I've seen the infrared ones that they claim that I mean, I have seen that they measure the heart rate, but I don't know how accurate they are. They say that it's pretty accurate, but I haven't seen their publication. I even asked them, because there's one company that makes like the infrared. You put it on in your room, and it measures your like a sleep time and your heart rate and this kind of stuff. And it was like a couple months ago. I saw them in a conference, and I talked to them. They always say that they have publications, this many publications, but I haven't seen anything really published from them. I don't know how accurate it is, but that's also something. I mean, that's the non-invasive options, but they still need to validate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've seen some other ones too, like using visual cues, even like looking at the heart rate with a camera. aimed at your face, and I think there's like ultra wideband radar, and there's a number of different ones, but I don't know how far along they are that they're working on.
There are also bands that you put under your mattress that can measure your sleep and heart rate, but still they are not that accurate. So
Well, thinking about nighttime, the blood pressure is more important than thinking of having the non-invasive system. It seems to be slightly hard, but if we can kind of put some sensor in the mattress, it might be good.
Oh, and then there was the talk that we had here. Katarina had somebody talking about e-tattoos, which, you know, gave all that sort of data. I'm not sure how far along that is either, but right.
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I know that one lab that work on that is in University of Texas at Austin. The other one is Texas A&M. The A&M one working on the blood pressure. The Austin one works on mostly like heart rate and body temperature. But they are really at earlier stages now, not really accurate, and they can't measure for like long period of time. And the other thing is that they call it tattoo, but it should be connected to a battery also. So you still need to wear a battery, connect the tattoo to that battery. So that's also, I mean, it's not really non-invasive. You should still wear something. But the idea itself is very nice and it is very good, but it is not here yet. I mean, in future, I think that would be something really interesting.
Yeah, I think ideally, you talked about using machine learning for, different for different approaches, and see, that's really interesting to me. I had one talk earlier, and then talking with a colleague of mine about how um, how we need to use that approach way more. Like a colleague of mine is is working in a child neurology, and for epilepsy even. It's really hard to know which drugs work on kids with epilepsy, for example, and most of the time it's also combined with autism. And sometimes, they even do the genetic analysis, like the sequencing, and it's still down to either this drug will help or make it way worse, and your child will be in the hospital in the next few days. Like, I think, and then we had the room earlier talking about researchers starting to look more at sequencing to predict, like, for example, miscarriage, um, for women, pregnancy miscarriages, and to calculate the ratio using sequencing and machine learning. I think we need to do that in general more to to prevent people from suffering from, like, drugs that won't help them, like, especially in psychiatry and other disorders that are not so easy to solve. People go through months and years of trial and error, and it becomes very frustrating, and or even worse, like the disease progresses in the meantime, which could make it chronic. Maybe if we would have a better way of predicting if a drug will work, um, we could maybe stop diseases from becoming chronic, way better. I think that's a really interesting thing you said. And what do you think about using genomics, maybe the epigenome or proteome combined with machine learning, and then combining it, which drugs maybe help or won't help? Do you think it's something it will take still a long time for us to develop these type of more precise diagnosis.
So, so basically, one thing that I'm working is on depression, and as you said, for depression, usually it takes. What I read is like at least about for average 6 months to figure out the right medication for patients. They have to change it several times. Uh, it's not. I mean, from the AI part, it's not that difficult. The problem is that there are not many data on this kind of things. So, and I mean, you need to have a data, a kind of data that you do. For example, you measure their EEG when they go to the doctor office, and then people goes under different treatments, and then you need a big data set. So you need several hundreds of patients, for example, to go under one kind of medication, several under the other kind of medication. The problem is we don't have this data sets. And if we want to get to make, I mean, we get our own data, it's expensive a study and it needs a big funding. So that's the main problem. I mean, what if we have the data? I mean, if we have the data for patients, for example, we have their EEG at the baseline, and then we know the outcomes. We know they went under this medication and they got this outcome. At the point that we have this data, it's really not difficult to make it. I mean, to make the models and make the algorithms for that. The machine learning part is not difficult for this one. The problem is that we don't have a good data that we can train our models.
Yeah, I agree. We don't have the data, we don't collect it, and so so do you think that the change in how we have this electronic health records to have it better organized and collect in general more data from patients would help? But for that would be like a political thing to say, collect more data from people or data points. And I'm not sure if people would also agree to do that on such a large scale.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the problem with the health record is that we don't have that. We don't have a good measurement at baseline. I mean, we don't have any EEG measurement or any continuous, for example, heart rate variability measurement. We don't have any kind of measurement. We can, at most, we can figure out what kind of medications they went through, and I mean, and we assume that the last one worked best for them. So that's what we can get out of that. But we don't have the baseline measurements for that. In the newer studies, some of the studies like the All of Us, for example, study, they are using wearable data, but for example, in this study, they use Fitbit, but they don't release the raw data, and Fitbit don't give them the raw data. They just, for example, give you the heart rate every 5 minutes, and the number of steps. These are good, but these are not enough. But they have Fitbit has the raw data, and when you have the raw data, it means that you have the heart rate variability. You can get lots of data out of the heart rate variability, and then you have like the future health outcomes and health record and everything. But they didn't consider this when they designed the study, that to have access to the raw data. So that's useless for us again. Yeah, again, the problem is the data.
Yeah, well, as Katrina mentioned, the collecting data can be very political, and one of the reasons why Google Health failed was just because of the data itself wasn't really accurate, or not really. Baseline is different from one person to the other, or one hospital to another. That's why they failed to really, even they got the data feed, they couldn't really utilize the data to analyze the situation. And also it's really political, and also the thing is, who owns the data is one issue. The other is the data privacy, and In Japan, the government is collecting all healthcare data because of the Japanese healthcare system. But those data can be only used for research purpose. So unless the government change their policies saying that this is also real life data, real world data, so that this can be used to utilize for better health, but because of this really political thing, that's why the government don't want to talk about it. So it's really mixture of so many different issues which we have to solve one by one.
Yeah, exactly. All of these are right. I mean, right now we buy the variables, but when we want to get data, we don't have access to our own raw data. That's one thing. I mean, it's not clear whose data is this. I mean, can the company really prevent you from getting your own raw data? It seems like they are what they are doing right now. But I mean, that's something that should be solved also. And yeah, there is also the problem with privacy and who get access to this data. All of these are a problem. But I mean, one thing is that these are private companies and they try to give as minimum amount of data as possible. I believe that for two reasons. Maybe one is when you have the raw data, the accuracy might go under question in compared to, for example, if they give you just a heart rate for every 5 minutes compared to when they want to give you like every second several of measurements of heart rate every second. I mean, definitely the second one has less accuracy. So that would be something that maybe that's one reason. And the other reason is maybe they try to sell the data to yourself. For example, some of the variables, when you want to, they give you the average data, but when you want to have access to your own raw data, you should pay them to get access to that. So that's also a source that they can make money. I mean, these are all the problems with this. These are new things, and people are still trying to figure out the rules for it and the regulations for it. And there are lots of companies, and yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, I agree that, the data problem we will have to solve somehow in the future. Now that you started to attempt that the data that they collect in the EU, that it has to go into like a repository. I don't know if they got through with that regulation or not, and that also other small companies, they have to allow access to those data sets, so it's more fair. Because if we don't give access to all this data, there will be monopolies, and further more and more monopolies, because they hold all the data, so then they can make future products for us more easily, and others won't be able to compete because they have zero data. So I think
Yeah,
they wanted to attempt that, but yeah, I'm not sure if they got, it's always attempts, but then we are not sure if it's actually really working in reality. But I agree that that would be important, and that we can also decide who we want to benefit the data with. Because it's not like we get the Apple Watch for free, right? With like our heart rate and how much we move and things like that. We have to buy them. So the data should be ours. Like, it's different if you use Google or Facebook. It's free, so you kind of know, it's a free service. It's not for free. They collect your data, and that's why it's free. But we buy an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and a Fitbit, so the data should belong to us. And I think it would be relatively easy to regulate. They should just put it under HIPAA regulations, because, and under the same regulations like health data in general from hospitals, because you always have as a patient the right to your raw data, so your health records from that hospital. So if they would just put all those data sets under the same regulations, that in general they have data sets, personal data sets have to follow those regulations, I don't see how it would be so hard. I mean, sure, there are probably a lot of lobbyists going against that, but like from a practical sense, it shouldn't be that hard to change the rules like that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but heart rate variability gives you a lot of insight into all sorts of diseases and even susceptibility towards future diseases. So I think part of the entire conspiracy here is that the companies that are taking your heart rate variability data are probably going to be selling it to pharmaceutical companies and advertisers so that they can target you with specific drugs. Like if they know you have a risk of heart disease, they will send you heart disease related advertisements. And it's part of the problem of the unfair big tech advantages, especially if Apple and Google have their own advertising marketplaces. So they are incentivized to send you like these kinds of targeted ads, right? And I might be wrong about it being a sort of universal measure of all your disease sort of likelihoods, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, actually, there was a case in Chicago. I think Facebook has a marketing app that somehow was accessing the information that the hospital was collecting from its patients. I don't remember the name of the actual app, but it was something maybe Pixel. I think that was the name of it. So certainly the private data privacy is a very important issue. I think it's even more and more important because data has become more and more valuable, and a lot of the information treatment regime diagnostic approaches actually would be dependent upon the quality of the data. But on the other hand, the thought that patients should own the raw data, it sounds reasonable and logical. The only problem is that, at least one of the problems is that the data that's actually useful is actually somewhat curated. In other words, it's not just a number of your LDL or it's a blood pressure of 120 over 80, but rather it's the reference point and what the actual numbers mean. And that comes from the additional processing of the raw data, if you will, which is the curation of what it means finally. And that's the curated data actually is going to be the one that's going to be useful to be incorporated into a treatment regime or diagnostic methods. So there needs to be somewhat of I think a two-way street, as in consumers slash patients will need to be mindful that there's no absolute in terms of ownership of data. The consumer and patients will need to really relinquish some I was going to say ownership of, but some manipulation of the data that they utilized, that the doctors and hospitals extracted from their own biological system, whether it's blood or it's urine or something. But in exchange, patients should get the curation, the curated form of the data back and be able to actually leverage that data for his or her own treatment in consultation with his or her own primary care physicians or specialists. The one other aspect to consider would be there may be some creative collaboration between industry and which is the curator or processing of the data with the generator of the data, which is the patients, whether it's via some sort of a DAO organization or some sort of a creative licensing or sharing, profit sharing. There are legal instruments that could be applied or deployed to move the dial forward, if you will. I think I guess my central point is instead of having a stalemate of arguing against each other, as in my data, my ownership, don't do anything with it, and the hospitals or and the pharma companies go, well, if I don't have access to your data, I'm not going to be able to help you. Rather than that status, let's move forward with a sort of a collaborative approach for a more positive outcome for all sides, if you will.
Yeah, agree. And I think the issue here is probably the transparency and trust. And if we trust the agencies which we are giving up our privacy, then we don't mind them using our private data. And because it's a transparent, that's why we feel confident to trust them. So that's one of the solutions to solve the conspiracies. And also probably this the collection data point of view, some people start discussing about the digital IDs, and in there we can we can accumulate the data, and as Ben mentioned, the number is just a number without analyzing or utilizing. It just doesn't mean anything to individual people, because my blood pressure doesn't mean to anybody. And also, unless we analyze what the difference between the good time and bad time, or being in the ill and so on, it doesn't mean anything. So it's really need to think about what the importance of the data and how it is utilized, as well as transparency and trust.
You know, Tomoko, to your point, I remember when I was working in the personalized medicine field, leveraging the genomic sequencing to discover biomarkers on correlation, certain marker to a disease, whether it's cardiovascular or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. I think the concern then was that privacy, but it's really not just privacy, but rather it's how it's used. So you mentioned the scenario where my blood pressure, it's my private information. I don't want other people to know about it. But in fact, if you look deeper, it's actually the concern was that the insurance company may use the biomarker information against me, as in if there's a correlation between the marker in my body and the risk of cardiovascular disease, while the insurance company might actually charge me higher premium. So I think again, this was the early days of personalized medicine in diagnostics. I think over time there are two ways that we have been able to resolve this issue. One is that there are like regulations that Congress legislated in terms of prohibiting the usage of certain information by the insurance company, by healthcare workers against the patients. And the other thing is that over time, the general public and the patients have accepted more that part of the giving up the so-called privacy is really for generating more personalized, targeted treatment or diagnostic for that particular patient. So it's really a process of education. And the other factor that's relevant to this is economic reality, if you will. I think if we look at a global perspective, there are countries with higher GDP average per capita, and there are lower ones that are with lower. So in terms of there are different priorities for different populations, all the way from survival, have enough to eat, to all the way to I would prefer certain things, even though they're not necessary to my survival. So I think the concept of privacy, I believe, is also evolving. There are things that we were not willing to give up in the olden days, but now we are able to be willing to do that in exchange for a better treatment or better quality of a lifestyle, if you will. So I think I'm still hopeful that just analogous to the banking industry, where in the olden days we didn't really want to go online banking for the fear that we would compromise and sacrifice, our accounts would be hacked. So we would still prefer in-person banking at the window with a teller. Now, fast forward 10, 20 years, I think online banking is almost inevitable. Most people, really, at least in the US, are used to accepting the fact that, hey, yeah, the risk is there, hacking is there, but whatever. That's for the convenience and the reality. We're going to have to go use online banking. So maybe in healthcare, the concept of privacy and the sort of data usage would also evolve similarly to a more sort of practical and mutually beneficial point.
And I think an interesting economic factor as well, like Katrina mentioned, she's not willing to pay for that heart rate variability data. There's an economic driver, which is that the insurance company and the advertisers are willing to pay for that data more than the actual owners of the data or the tenants of the data. Like, I mean, the average US consumer is subjected to $1,000 worth of advertising every year, right? So, I mean, are we willing to pay $1,000 for a heart rate variability data? No, but the advertisers and the insurance companies are. So that's always going to be driving this in a way.
Yeah, the thing is, why? And, that kind of came from the guest speaker we had earlier today about the genetic sequencing and predicting miscarriage, risk. But, also then looking at other data sets, like with the same data, you could probably predict cancer, like how likely a woman is to get cancer, because there are genes that overlap. Like, we don't know, but most likely we could. But what can we do about it? And we can predict a lot of things, but if there's no solution for it, like, one thing is if we have a solution for it, we would predict this, we would have the perfect medication or the perfect lifestyle you could have to address it. But for a lot of things, we don't have any cure or any solution. So, what does it help you to know all this data? Like, what does it help you to know that maybe your kids will have autism? Like, would you really consider, like, that's then a moral issue, and then you will have all these arguments about religious people against other people. What do you do with that information? Or what do you do with the information that you're more likely to get Alzheimer's or dementia? Do we have a good drug that you could take all your life right now to prevent it? Okay, you can sleep, but that's common sense, right? That we know everyone should sleep enough, eat healthy, exercise a little bit. We know all the healthy lifestyles by now. So what do you do? Why would you do that to yourself, to know at, let's say, 55 you have a higher likelihood of dementia setting in? Like, don't you want to live just your life until then? Like, that's one thing that concerns me about knowing too much. And what do you do with that information? What will the
Yeah,
doctor do with that if there's no solution?
that's a fascinating question, Katerina. That was actually the question that was in discussion. Again, during the early days of personalized medicine, when we were working on biomarkers. The way that I would address that would be a couple of ways to address that. One would be, it depends on you how you design the primary endpoint, if you will. Personalized medicine can be utilized in different ways, not only to tell you, hey, you have a higher likelihood of developing Alzheimer's or cardiovascular disease, but it could also be used to stratify patient population. So we were working with pharma companies with their failed trials, if you will. The failed in the sense that it was applied to the general population, and there was no good p-value. So we were able to stratify the general population in the case and control approach, and then discover a subset of that population with a particular marker actually was responding to the drug that it was tested. They were testing. So I think that particular approach really has almost immediate utility in terms of having the information about you, as in you have this green marker. Therefore, we should put you in on this drug. Whereas if you have a red marker, that would not be a very practical way, useful way to do that. And the other approach, the other way to understand the utility of the marker to personalized medicine is there may be technology that's soon to be developed that can be utilized to help and to be used as a therapy. For example, in the case of, I'm thinking of an example of a sickle cell anemia. That's going to help. It's going to help me knowing that I have sickle cell anemia. I've got a gene mutation, but nothing can be done about it. You cannot change anything about it. I just live with this thought that, gosh, I have the sickle cell anemia. But then again, fast forward a few years later, CRISPR came along. So technologies like that, combined with the information of the diagnostic, the marker that we discovered early on, could actually be combined to help me find a therapeutic way to change, to improve my health, if you will, if I have carried that particular gene. So I think, I believe the utility of discovering these markers or diagnostic tools would be fundamentally useful as a technology. I think the question is how to use it, or to put it more simply, to prevent the misuse or the unproductive use of that information once we have it. And the examples that I can think of would be including the insurance leveraging the information in their calculating actuarial table, which, by the way, there's no good science to prove that anyways, to use that factor. It's not like smoking or anything like that. But anyway, that's a different topic. But I think we have regulations and law as a tool to prevent that from happening. And then again, once you sort of reduce the likelihood of the negative application usage of the information, I think what's left in my mind would be potential promising positive application of that information to help improve our lives.
Yeah, Ben, I really like that. And in general, I agree. But some recent political developments kind of make me a little bit more cautious. Like, I was really a defender of everything you said, but with the data about the menstruation cycle of women in states where now abortion is illegal, and hunting down women that still want to have an abortion or have an abortion to prosecute them, is just one example. So if laws change and politics change, it's really easy to weaponize that information. And it doesn't even have to be weaponized radically. Let's say we are in a longer term recession, and there's really no way we can afford everyone to have precise medicine. Um, and you can know from the data sets, um, let's say in your family, early onset dementia is quite common. Maybe, genes related to cognition are not the best ones. You could, in a more authoritarian regime, calculate, okay, that child, let's not invest too much for too long in education, because it won't be someone that's very productive for very long. So let's say you train them as a neurosurgeon, they will stay productive maybe for another 8 years or 10 years, and then it will decline quite rapidly. Or maybe Parkinson is quite common in that family, and so on. So the data we let people collect now from us could affect our future generations if kind of political climate changes, but also actually climate change changes, because that will stress a lot of governments around the world economically quite significantly, and this usually doesn't lead to like a freer and better and more generous world usually. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll go first, and Lisa, you can come in. So, while you're speaking, a couple of thoughts came to mind. One would be, first of all, from a scientific perspective, some of the hypothetical misuse of genetic information, I don't think they're very solid to begin with. Take, for example, a theory that, oh, there's a gene that's you have a family gene from your grandfather, grandmother, blah blah blah, and that gene is going to be causing you Alzheimer's, right? And then therefore we should attribute it less resources, sort of like a eugenics kind of approach. For one thing, I think scientifically I don't see there's a particular a clear correlation between a gene to the final outcome of someone. I use a sickle cell anemia as a single gene disease, very rarely Alzheimer's or something like that. So even scientifically, someone cannot really show me, even assuming I'm buying into the eugenics approach, that, oh, just because having this gene, that person is going to be a horrible contributor to society. That is so not true because it's multivariable. This person may have a higher risk in this particular gene, presumably, with the data we have, but there's like 100 other possible factors that would make that person much more productive and suitable and contributing factor to the society. So I think, number one, we have to, there's very few scientific evidence to support that kind of approach that, oh, a gene having, if you have this gene, this marker, you're going to be a terrible person to the world. That is very, very rare. I haven't seen anything like that. But even assuming that were true, for example, sickle cell anemia, let's just use that example. Still, I think in our existing society, we do have tools to leverage, to use to prevent something like that from happening. For example, there can be prohibition of discriminating against people with a sickle cell anemia-ish gene, if you will. And I'm still hopeful that in many civilized societies, this type of eugenic type of consider philosophy, they're not going to fly very, you know, easily, if you will. Maybe there are a few countries in the world that this could be possible, but for that to be accepted broadly in worldwide, that is very, very difficult. No matter how poor or rich you are. So I think the analogy I was thinking, maybe it's not quite fitting, is the nuclear fusion, if you will, fission, if you will. That could be utilized as an atomic bomb to kill people. But again, on the other hand, it can be utilized for energy production, if you will. So it's a matter of how to use the science. I guess I'm in the camp of not supporting uh, killing a scientific research or discovery for the fear that it might be utilized in a negative way. I think we as humans, as a society, should encourage, discovery and invention, but be also responsible enough to manage and regulate how, ethically we want to utilize or leverage that creation or invention in a way that's positive for the society versus, negative in whichever definition you use that word for the society. So you can call that a bit of a idealistic or optimistic, but knowing what I know about the laws as a tool, as well as the various different countries that I've worked at, I still am relatively positive that good scientific discovery and invention, such as post-personalized medicine, such as CRISPR, etc., could be utilized in a positive and ethical way.
Yeah, so I see the situation a little bit differently in that I think it's most likely that insurance companies are very practiced at evaluating risk, and so you probably will pay a premium that is slightly different based on you have this gene and it is, X more risk, averse than the other, and you'll therefore have to pay, and we already accept that kind of as a just a de facto in the current system. And then the other thing is that I'm a little bit worried that this ship has already sailed because the US government, as well as the yeah, the British government's health service have made agreements already with Palantir for the health data of the citizens. And there was also the one with Israel and the vaccine for data agreement. So I feel like this cat is already out of the bag. That data has already been handed over and probably evaluated. And, there's machine learning right now working on what things are, risk. What risks they can determine and what associations and correlations they can make between, a person's particular health data and, the total data set. So I'm much less optimistic, unfortunately. I do agree, though, that we ought to be thinking about ways of regulating this, in particular because I don't believe it's the case we'll be able to hide in large numbers anymore. There was recently the Australian government released, I think it was 10% of their citizens' health data that was supposed to be anonymized, and it took machine learning researchers, I think, 6 weeks to re-identify the people in the data set. So we really need to, think about these things, and we ought to be moving a lot more rapidly if we do want to protect the data, because once it's out there, there's no getting it back. Yeah.
Minna and Omar, did you have something to add? I think we're closing the room soon. At least for me, it's like 12:35 a.m. So, yeah, please go ahead if you wanted to share something.
Yeah, and hello, my name is Minna. In reference to privacy or HIPAA data, Health Information Privacy Act data, and also FERPA information, uh, those are two protected categories of information. From an information science point of view, from information system point of view, the only way to separate them is to physically separate them in two different databases, which is very expensive. Not all governments have the ability to do this. Only companies like Oracle or SAP have the ability to do this, unless it's a very small data set. Then you might be able to use it. I'm just saying that the technical capabilities of anonymizing the data is limited by the amount of technology that is available to the analyst.
Yeah, I agree. And isn't it the problem that most companies in the end use AWS for all kinds of stuff in the background? They put the APIs on there and data runs through those. So I know that in theory they shouldn't, they don't collect it and so on, but I don't know if that's really the case and, from the practical side. But I know that a lot of like health companies and in the end AWS dealing with, you know, it's just so cheap, so much cheaper than anything else. So yeah. Omar, did you have something that you wanted to share or?
Oh, Katrina, it was lovely listening, and today the information was really good. I was amazed to listen today. Thank you. As of now, no questions, but if there would be anything, I would really definitely come up with that. Thank you, Katrina, and thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you for being here, and a special thank you and for being like the marathon guest speaker here is Dr. Hagai.
Haghayegh.
Yeah, so the
Shao
next,
Haghayegh. Yeah.
I hope by next time I'll learn your name, and I hope you come back. So I'm
Sure.
implying I'm being very,
But Katarina, this is Clubhouse. You should say Dr. Shahab, right? We call
Yes.
people by the name that's showing on the screen. So you're okay, Katarina.
okay. Thank you. It was really.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks for inviting me. It was really nice to be here, and thanks for your comments and questions.
Yeah, you had such a broad knowledge, like it was such a pleasure having you here, and you had so much patience with us and answering all these different questions, from engineering to melatonin and what materials to use. It was amazing. So thank you so much. And yeah, I hope we hear you someday again, and feel free to come back for
Sure.
any discussions we have. And yeah, it was really amazing. So thank you so much for being here and coming.
Sure. Thank you all.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming, asking questions, participating, sharing so much in the chat. This will be an amazing replay with so much resources for people to look up. That's really valuable, and that's why I like using Clubhouse for recordings, because all these links will still be available in the future. And yeah, if people will listen to it and will read all the papers, they will have like, I don't know, half of a master degree. Okay, so thank you, and thank you everyone, and have a good night or a good morning or wherever you are around the world. And I hear you all back soon. I hope tomorrow we have a room, a physics room, um, with Dr. Ren and Dr. Chang. Well, yeah, physics engineering. They discovered a new material for a semiconductor that is better than silicon. So, and it will be at 2 p.m. EST. So, yeah, maybe everyone can come back, or if not, then we'll hear you maybe next week again. So, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for the lovely and very insightful rooms, Katrina and Dr. something. Sorry.
I'm sharp.
And I'm looking forward to actually, I've been in the room, but I'm looking forward to listen to recording again to memorize things. I have to make a notes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, same
Thank
thing
you.
here. Great room, Katarina. One thing I just want to say, Dr. Shahab, you have a great last name because, if I were searching a particular publication or a patent as an inventor, it's a wonderful name. I really hate it when people's name are like Smith or Lee or something. It's terrible. You can never find that person. But with your name, you have a huge advantage of standing out. But thank you. Looking forward to maybe more conversations in later
Sure.
times.
Thank you. Nice to
I agree. You and thank you so much, Ben, for that. And I agree. It's really
Yeah, that's right.
okay. I'll close the room in 3, 2, 1. Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.